Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
I really appreciated your coverage of you picking up the Fantastica magazine. It felt like I teach film at high school, so we always have a auteur theory, and obviously Wes Anderson always comes up. So I was watching that. I was like, "Oh, this feels very Wes
Wait,
Anderson."
you actually no, because I totally stole a shot from Wes Anderson for the when I get the magazine. Yes. That's actually so fun because I was like, I wonder if anyone will ever catch that, and you're the first person to mention it to me. So
Oh, good. I'm glad we're recording that.
I was also quite I didn't take film, but I took video production, so we learned similar skills in high school.
Hello, you lot. It's me, Stephen. We're here talking about The Witcher, but as we said, we're talking with an actual Witcher scholar, I'm going to say. So we are here talking about the greatest fantasy series of all time. When they talk about adaptations, they will put this on the pedestal and go like, move out the way, Peter Jackson. Lauren, if she understood the text better. So here we are. We're going to put Peter Jackson down. We're going to put him away. And here we are. No, of course not. Witcher 4 is... Oh, God. It's like... I have to think, because if I remember correctly from all your wonderful videos, is that you thought this whole series was tripping up and buckling the moment it began. Like, they were making the wrong decisions, even in pre-production. Like...
Yes. If anyone saw that wig reveal with Henry Cavill,
Ooh,
I know that everyone lords that over, so maybe it's like too easy, like shooting fish in a barrel. But everyone kind of knew it was bad news from then.
You are fundamentally a Witcher channel, mainly on the novels.
Yes, and maybe I'll expand it later, but my focus is The Witcher because, like, I feel that there's not enough coverage about the books, at least in English language. Well, it was funny because I started my channel like, well, maybe I'll just talk a little bit about The Witcher and just see like what the, what people think of my opinions. And then everyone was like, wow, it's interesting because you're an American fan and you like understand the books. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that there's not that many, or proportionately as many American fans, or I guess maybe Anglophone fans who are into the books rather than the games or the show.
Well, that's it, because I remember Witcher being that other fantasy game that came out in 2011 that wasn't Skyrim. Like, that's how I was introduced to it. I remember, like, Angry Joe's review about it or something going, oh, this game's pretty good, and I never played it because it was on PC. But yeah, for me, and one of my favourite videos of yours is the one where you talk about the multi-platform media nature of Witcher and how that has kind of positively, but also negatively affected how we in the Western English-speaking world view The Witcher, which is why one of my pet peeves for this whole show is when people go, why is it not just about Geralt killing monsters? I'm like, you've never... Even the short stories aren't that. Like, the short stories, which surprised me when I was reading them, I was like, God, this guy just talks a lot, doesn't he? Like, that was what surprised me the most about Book Geralt, was he just waffles on all the time, like, which is something that game fans, and by game fans I mean Witcher 3 fans, they think Geralt's just like the gruff guy who does like some side missions, and then Ciri is this distant daughter figure who we sometimes play as, but not really that important to the overall thing, is what those people think.
Well, especially because I feel like Witcher 3 is a massive game, so we can only imagine that most of the people who've played the game have not played the full way through, because there's, multiple acts, there's 3 acts. Oh. And so most people,
and then the DLCs.
Yeah, oh god, yes. When I've met people in real life who know about The Witcher, so like here in the US, they've either played Witcher 3 or, watched someone else play it, or... more recently, most people know it from the show, which is what we were talking about. Is like, I guess it's like kind of strange because when I was in high school, which was when I started to get into The Witcher, most people at my high school played video games, and we all kind of knew what the gaming culture was like, or what new titles were out and stuff like that, or what titles are popular. Then after I graduated, then it was just like suddenly, I guess a larger demographic of the whole ocean, right, of people from all walks of life, and yes, now more people just know it through the show. I guess most people have Netflix subscriptions nowadays, so...
It's kind of worrying, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
messed up.
My mother-in-law is the typical, she has her boys' stable, and in her boys' stable is Henry Cavill. So she's like, oh, he's in a show? Well, I'm going to watch it.
No, exactly. My coworker said the same thing to me when the first season came out.
It's like the only other person who I think could have is the guy who plays Jamie in Outlander. She follows him around wherever he goes. Like, so if he was the Witcher, she'd have been in. In our rewatching, we were surprised how almost every season felt like the writers, or whoever it was, got back in the writer room and went, right, that didn't work. What are we going to do now? And then now we're here in season 4, and it still feels like we're doing that with the show. And now it's like, I feel like we're barreling down the end. Like Netflix or someone has said, look, 2 more seasons, just get it done. And so now it's like all these, like, we've been joking about it, the Frin and Fran adventures. Like this, it's been our hated thing, the amount of scenes they give to Frin and Fran.
It's
and then
so
now
funny.
it's like,
God.
Yeah.
Fringilla Vigo and Francesca Findebert, like these exalted
BFFs,
names from Latin and Welsh, and then just like Fran and Fran. That's kind of a summary of the whole show, isn't it? We're taking these utterly complex, linguistically complex references. Also, might I add, like, mythologically connected. Like, Fringilla Vigo has kind of, I was kind of a classics minor in school, so I'm more familiar with the ancient Greek side of things. But,
okay, cool.
For me, she kind of has a parallel to Kirke, or Circe, the sorceress who delays Odysseus in his journey. And we might also consider this like a Yennefer thing in The Last Wish, right? It's a sorceress that poses a challenge to a guy with a sword. Very basic myth.
Yes.
Because, she seduces him, but then it gets, reversed. And I won't spoil too much because you haven't read Lady of the Lake yet, right? Or you haven't finished it.
I'm still on Tower of the Swallow. I got witched out. Like,
yes.
I read all the books, watched all the shows. Eventually I got like, I was like, I need a rest from Witcher for a little bit.
It's a lot. Might I ask what chapter of Tower of the Swallow so I know what not to say?
Oh, it's...
Or how far in the chapter as well?
Obviously, given that I know some stuff from... I mean, technically, you've already spoiled me because I've watched your videos. But it's... They've just went... It's like the mining bit, and he's with, I'm going to say, Angoulême, not Ciri. So they've went in...
Okay, yes, that's chapter 6.
Yeah, and then, like, the half-elf has came in and, like, oh, why are you trying to get me killed? So Geralt's pretending he's a witcher who's killed him.
Yes, and Angoulême says, oh, well, we took his hand as a trophy, but a raccoon ran off with it.
Yeah, that's it. The spirit of this show, and I think you've also said this point, is that it just felt like Netflix or producer whoever just went, right, Game of Thrones is big. Amazon have just purchased Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time, so they went down the list of popular fantasy series that are available to us, found The Witcher, and went, oh, swords, magic, that'll do.
And Sapkowski will probably sell it to us for 10 million zloty.
Yeah, that's it. So then it just feels like they went, if you look at the golden example of adaptation, Lord of the Rings, because he's like, oh, Tolkien's message, we're putting it to film, we're trying to keep out the way and not put our own personal stuff in there. Where it just feels like with these guys, even though I haven't heard these quotes, the show tells me, without an interview from Lauren, is we know better, we're going to improve on The Witcher and make it more... appeasing or like more interesting to what we think the audience is. And I don't know, fundamentally, I no longer know who this show is for. I mean, I know there's some people out there who really like The Witcher show. I'm on that Reddit. There are some people who are talking about it with earnest enjoyment, but there aren't many of them anymore, I would say. But is that something that you think that, I mean, you're much more entrenched in the Witcher community.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people who love the books aren't interested. People who just want a cool guy with a sword have lost interest. Henry Cavill fans have completely lost interest.
Henry Cavill fans are out, man. Oh my god.
They're revising on Warhammer, I guess. So.
Yes. No, Henry Cavill fans were like ready to storm Netflix HQ, I feel. But no, I totally agree with that point. Like, I also don't know who the demographic for this show is. Well, let's go back to season 1, because I guess also, I don't know if this like might get political. Whatever. I mean, the books tell us not to be neutral, but I'm just saying we're not going to draw a bunch of politics into our chat if it's not relevant, right?
No, of course not.
What's quite funny to me, and I was complaining about this in a YouTube comment yesterday as well, is that like I'm kind of smack dab in the target demographic for Netflix Witcher stuff. which is like, I guess, maybe college age or a young-ish person in their 20s who identifies as LGBT, who is, well, I'm biracial, so I'm also I'm white and Chinese, right? So I have a few like marginalized identities or communities I belong to that have historically not been well represented in fantasy. And I bring this up because according to Lauren Hissrich's Twitter account in 2019 and, so on, that she really prized, being a female showrunner and wanting to bring justice to this book series from a female perspective, like really showing some of the perspectives that have not been historically represented in fantasy, right? And that's great. And for me, I value that. And also, like, as I mentioned, I'm in the demographic, right? My politics lean mostly liberal or left, right? I'll just say that myself. So, like, I should be just, like, right in the middle of it. And it's funny because it's all, what I find about Netflix that's so disappointing to me like that, is that it's all just mouth. It's all just talk. And there's no actual execution on any of these themes. So they're appealing to maybe this like liberal audience that values diversity in fiction, right? Or wants representation, right? But they're only ever skimming that shallow top of people who have those politics but are like brain dead. Forgive me. No offense to anyone who likes the show, right? But if they're looking for people who really want to get those like deeper messages and values, which I think that, I mean, it's not, politics is a big ocean, right? So not everyone who shares a similar view is going to have similar depths in that view, right? But it's funny because I feel like a lot of like liberal or like leftist literature and stuff, it gets pretty deep, right? There's like a lot of stuff. For example, we were talking about Ursula K. Le Guin, right? A feminist, writer, author, just anthropologist, amazing woman. May she rest in peace. But right, so like that's an example of the kind of like, I guess I would say, feminist fantasy literature that provides depth and the experience that someone who's looking for representation in fiction, in fantasy, might gravitate towards. And it's just so funny because they just totally screwed the pooch with The Witcher. First of all, because The Witcher itself is a curious choice, in my opinion, because if you're looking to represent, I guess, specifically for an American audience, right? Because it was most of the advertising and marketing, I feel like, skews towards American, maybe also British is in there. And then we also rope in, like, Canada and Australia and New Zealand and just sort of Anglophone world. But, but, like, it's a very Hollywood production, right? It's Hollywoodized.
It is.
Americanized.
Which is a bit annoying in some ways, because I know there is it's like they wanted to just play it safe visually.
Extremely, right?
It's like in not to cut you off, the terrible Earthsea adaptation. There's the Earthsea adaptation by Studio Ghibli. It was by the fella's son. But there was a terrible Earthsea straight-to-video where it has, I think, the actor who played Iceman from X-Men, or maybe his brother, because they're twins, and just completely whitewashed. The idea that that they were brown, no, they're all just white. And it's, it's very mid-2000s, who cares about all that? This show, what you're saying, would you say Lauren hasn't even delivered on what she said in 2019?
Yes.
Like, she hasn't even done that.
Yes, because, I mentioned Fringy Levigo earlier, right? In the books, she is introduced in Baptism of Fire, Chapter 5.
Yes, I remember that chapter because it's awesome.
Yes, and, she speaks, or Asiriva Anahid, she's her friend, and that's how she's introduced. And then she has this interesting interaction with Yennefer in the lodge in Chapter 6, where she allows her to escape Monte Calvo, despite being her enemy who blinded her at Sodden Hill. And then in Tower of the Swallows, she kind of disappears off the page, but she shows up in just like a little bit of a vision from Ciri in Chapter 11, the end of the book. And then in Lady of the Lake, she becomes very important as an antagonist in Chapters 3 and 4. And she becomes like this obstacle for Geralt to overcome, and sort of like, they're kind of playing mind games. They're playing manipulation games, which also is kind of a part for Geralt's character development, because usually he's not really the manipulative type. He's not the politics type. He is just like, I want to be left alone from politics. Please let me find my daughter. So he kind of has to
Which I love.
right? Yeah, he's just sort of an everyman, right? But Geralt has to take a page from Yennefer's playbook and sort of do a little bit of action. And great way to describe it. But he sort of outwits Fringilla, right? But Fringilla herself is very intelligent, and might I also add a how would I say, like a legacy. Like in a university, you have legacy students whose like fathers and grandfathers attended this prestigious university. Her uncle, Artorius Vigo, was the court illusionist at Beauclair.
Yes.
And Beauclair is like a very specific one of my favorite locations. Mentioned it on my channel a few times. But Beauclair is very important for Fringilla Vigo to be tied to, because as a sorceress, she specializes in illusions. And the amulet, the chrysoprase, or I don't know how to say the gemstone, but chrysoprase amulet that she gives Geralt becomes very important later on in Chapter 9. So her main power is illusion, and this is also symbolically tied to what she does with Geralt, as she is the antagonist who's delaying him on his mission, because she was strategically placed in Beauclair to seduce him, to delay him from his quest for Ciri, so then the Lodge of Sorceresses could find Ciri before he did. Right. So they're just like, okay, Fringilla, you're our girl in Beauclair, you know, live there, you know, you have family there, so you stay, Geralt, there. Keep him there, okay? Don't let him leave. And then Geralt leaves, because Fringilla Vigo did her job, you know, whatever. But that's, sorry, I brought her up because then we have, let's say, like, we're trying to represent more underrepresented identities in this show, right? So we cast Mimi Duendi for Fringilla Vigo, right? Okay, people are going to complain because she's a black woman. This world is not kind to black women. Let's not complain about that, because I personally have no problem with that. Maybe give her green eye contacts for book accuracy, but Fringilla Vigo is described with black hair. The actress has black hair, right? Okay.
And also, we have got a quote from Andre going, I don't care, just pay me, or whatever he says. Like.
Yeah, he was like, I don't care. And also, I think, I don't have a source for this, but he said that he's, like, chill with, like, adding more diversity in fantasy. And it wasn't something he was really thinking about in when he was writing the series. Yeah. So, like, things have changed, right? So,
and in fairness, Poland, in that sense, isn't the most diverse place. It is majoritarily Polish people there. He wasn't thinking about it because he was looking around the world he was in and seeing Polish people. So
yeah, right. So we have Fringilla Vigo portrayed by a black actress. Great, whatever. So are we also considering the fact that Fringilla Vigo is relative to Anna Henrietta, the Duchess of Beauclair? I don't know. She hasn't been cast yet, right? But are we also considering that Fringilla Vigo has been, like, part of her and Geralt's relationship is that Geralt, like, sees Yennefer in her. It's, like, a very funny, awkward scene, but she basically says her name during sex. So he's kind of mistaking her for Yennefer, because Yennefer is his one true love, right? So are we considering that? Have we cast a black actress for Yennefer as well? No, we've cast half Indian, half British Anya Chilatra for Yennefer, which also, okay, whatever, I don't care. But
she's from the same town. She's from the same city as me, which I say all the time. We're both from Wolverhampton. So Wolf, the city of the wolf. We're both from there. There you go.
Fitting. But sorry, that's all beside my point. My point was that Fringilla Vigo is a quite interesting character in the books, right? She has this mythological significance, symbolic significance, because her delaying of Geralt is, like, tied to her illusionist stuff, magic, as a sorceress, right? Because she pulls the wool over Geralt's eyes, or she's trying to. And then in the Netflix series, what does Fringilla Vigo do? Dark magic, which does not exist in the books.
Well, she assists political stuff with Nilfgaard, apparently, that Yennefer could have stopped if Yennefer went there.
I don't even know, because they just made a bunch of stuff up for her, and it's not interesting, and it's not flattering, I feel, for the actress in this role. And it's like Lauren Hisrick saying, we are going to represent these voices in fantasy because they're underrepresented. Great, good job. Why did you make the characters worse? If you want to give them to a black actress, why did you make the characters worse? Yeah,
that's kind of the point. It's like, I'm the same as you. I'm writing my own fantasy right now, and I just have, like, characters of any race, if I even think to mention the race, because that's also the thing in books. You don't really need to bring it up sometimes. It doesn't really matter. It's like, I think Mark Hamill said, it's like Luke Skywalker could be gay, straight, whatever. He doesn't actually have a love interest in those films. Apart from his sister, potentially. But, our least favourite YouTubers, who we shan't mention, who will go, the world doesn't feel real because every single town feels like a hodgepodge of different people. My argument would be that the Witcher world would be the one where it could make the most sense since humans drifted into this world. So therefore, it would be a hodgepodge of all sorts of people because the logic of this world is that people from our universe of many backgrounds drifted on over, from what I understand, is how the world works. So therefore, the world could be a hodgepodge.
It's not really explained, but yes, that's the general gist.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about, like, ethnic diversity in Poland, and I feel like, I just got into watching the show 1670 because I was like, it has been on my watch list for so long, and then I was like, I don't have a Netflix subscription, and I don't want to, just yo-ho it because I want to, like, give them the right views for the work that is being produced. So I didn't watch for a long time, and the season 2 just came out, and I had to get a Netflix subscription for The Witcher. So I was like, yes, I finally get to watch it. And it's gold.
What is it actually about? Is it set in, like, Polish history or something?
Yeah, it's set in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which, like, what I really like about this show is I wish we had this kind of show for, like, every period of history because, like, I'm not like an expert by far on this period in history or anything, but I've sort of, like, I've looked at the Wikipedia pages, right? But yeah, so 1670 is a show set in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and it's quite interesting to me because I had skimmed the Wikipedia pages for the systems of government. How do I say this word? Szlachta, which is the nobility system that they had. But it's quite interesting period of history for Poland. I mean, because I wanted to read With Fire and Sword or Sienkiewicz's Ogniem I Mieczem, and Potop, and, the Trilogia, the trilogy, which is, like, a very famous piece of, like, Polish literature, high culture, right? And also Sapkowski's, one of Sapkowski's many favorite books. So this is, like, a very referenced period in time for modern-day Poland, like, to reference back to because it was, like, one of the great periods, right? What I really like about this show is because I skimmed these Wikipedia pages and I was just like, I can understand what you're saying, like, in theory, but I can't really, like, visualize it. I can look at the paintings, I can look at, like, the historical records of what we have or, secondary sources, but I can't really imagine it for myself. And then this show just, like, uses these complicated topics and illustrates them so perfectly and uses them for comedy. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's just so funny because it's like, I have trouble, like, imagining what would that be like. And then here they are depicting a family of, they're basically, like, lords, but here's the thing is that not all of the nobility were super, super rich, like we might imagine, like, fantasy lords and ladies just sort of, in a castle somewhere. So they're lords, but they're lords of a small village. I don't know if I can pronounce it right. Adamczyha. So it's like, it's sort of going into, like, how they're managing the village and how they're mismanaging the village. And personally, I'm, like, more of a comedy fan rather than a drama fan, so I guess I connects with me.
It makes sense why The Witcher clicks.
Right? Yes. Like, when I first read The Witcher, like, Dandelion is my favorite character, right? I just, I'm just sort of doing a glazing session. I forgot what I was talking about. Episode 4, I think, of the first season. It's called, like, Equality March. And basically, Aniela, who is the Lord's daughter, Jan Paweł's daughter, she is, like, sort of a riff on, like, a feminist, liberal-minded, sort of college-aged young girl. Of course, she's living in the Commonwealth, which is, like, not always supportive of her desires because her mother and father's wish for her is to marry Syna Magnata, the son of a magnate, who is, like, a higher lord than them, so they can get, more status in their society. She and also the Jewish guys who are living also in their village, they want to set up this equality march to, like, show that, like, Adamczyha is accepting of, like, all kinds of people, right? And it's also funny because Jakub, who is also Aniela's brother and Jan Pavel's son, he's a priest, and he's a, obviously Catholic priest. And they're doing this thing of like rating what you are in the religious thing. And it's like, well, if you're an atheist, you're going to be stoned. And one of the villagers is like, I actually believe in the Brown Hatter, so I am religious, but so you can't stone me. And so he just makes up a religion on the spot. But what I'm saying is that, like, they take this topic of, like, diversity in Poland and, like, historical references and influences because, of course, also Commonwealth. We're talking about, like, Potop, the deluge, which was, like, the invasion of Poland by the Swedes. So every time in the show, they're like, they hear the Swedes, they go, and they spit on the ground. They're like, well, we still remember the invasion. So they're kind of taking this, like, modern idea of, like, diversity and inclusion and then hilariously contrasting it with, like, historical, let's just say, like, ethnic tensions. Like, Bogdan gets kidnapped by the Tatars, and this is, like, a whole thing on the side of that episode.
It's probably not similar, but I love The Great with Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult.
Oh my gosh, that's been recommended to me so much.
Yeah, because it just openly goes, like, we're not trying to be historical here. Like, don't be silly. So it has a varied group of, like, cast of characters who weren't black or of Indian descent in real life, but also Catherine the Great and Peter weren't married that long in real life anyway. They weren't both adults at the time. But there's a great bit in season 3 where the English ambassador comes for support in the Civil War of America, and then the American one comes, and he looks like the $5 bill. He's got the strong chin, and he has an American accent, and he says, we're going to take the U out of colour, which really annoys the English ambassador. So, like, they bring in this, like, humour, diversity, and also I still feel like it feels correct to the time. Everyone's in fitting outfits, and you get the sense of, like, what culturally things were going on at the time. Where with this, and I guess we can go all the way to season 1 and we'll skip through season 1, 2, and 3 quickly, is that it very much just seems like we've read the stories at the most surface level with all of these books. We have not wanted, like, we're like what you've just done there when you've talked about the etymology of the names, how they relate to Greek myth. I feel like, because, going back to Peter Jackson, he had the Tolkien scholars in the room with him or on the phone, like, explaining what was going on. And I know there isn't, like, well, maybe there is someone teaching Witcher in a Polish university because it is a very high thing in their culture, obviously. I find it very strange that even with season 1, which at the time came out alongside Mandalorian, which got a lot of praise for being just half-hour punchiness, cool guy doing a cool thing. And I was there thinking, okay, these first 2 books of The Witcher could be that. It's Donkey and Shrek, and there's a witch around as well sometimes. So you could, in theory, get people to fall in love with these characters and this world across 1 or 2 seasons. And then we can go into the main saga, because that's what Sapkowski did, and that's how every reader of these books, like, already being on, like, the Wiseman Reddit or the Witcher Reddit, it's like, can I start with Blood of Elves? It's like, how do we not just have start with The Last Wish? Like, people who just think they don't need the short stories when you obviously do. So when we were rewatching it, I remember falling off season 1 way back when it came out. So rewatching it now that I've read the books, I was just surprised at all the pointless, obviously the structure stuff, which is, I think, the damning thing of that season, is the need to give everyone something is my problem with the whole show. Is that, and that's where Frin and Fran come in, is that it feels like, I mean, I know you said you haven't watched Game of Thrones, but it feels like they looked at Game of Thrones and said, multiple perspectives. But Game of Thrones, the book, is built from that multiple perspective. Like, it's designed that way, where The Witcher, while he jumps to different POVs, you're still focused, at least, I mean, you'd probably know the percentages, but you're kind of still on Geralt the most. Then we've also, the found family, the main 3, are our main people.
Mostly Geralt and Ciri. Yennefer is more of a secondary character in the books. Not to say that she's not important or that I don't like her. I love Yennefer, but she really only appears in, like, has a POV, like an actual POV chapter in chapter 6 of Baptism of Fire, chapter 9 of Tower of the Swallow, and then
which
chapter 2 of
surprised
Lady of
me.
the Lake for, like, a little bit.
Like, would you say that their job is that they are adapting a work and their primary objective is to adapt it faithfully? Like, would you say that that's that should have been their goal?
Is there an alternative goal? Get as many viewers as possible, the alternative goal?
But that's what it is. It's like, if you're going to adapt a work, I suppose you really should just adapt the work, right? I mean,
yeah.
Or else, I mean, I understand the logic of when people go, just make your own show, but then there's the reality of, you wouldn't want to watch a made-up show. Like, we need the brand recognition. We need the IP.
Yeah.
And The Witcher is
so
the
curious
IP.
Because they didn't make it like The Witcher at all.
Yeah, well,
that's
any
not
version
to say
of it.
that. Yeah, it's not to say that they have to like copy what CD Projekt has done, right? Because it shouldn't be like, unless they have a legal agreement, they can't. They literally can't just copy what they've done. Although I think that that's quite fantastic.
But they partnered up for like a convention that one time, if you remember.
Oh,
the WitcherCon,
no, not WitcherCon 2021, where it showed
you didn't
Witcher
like that?
3 Geralt, and it was an online thing only because of the pandemic. But it was so funny because they showed Witcher 3 Geralt like this was a sword, and then Netflix Geralt like this was a sword, and me just going, "Where is Book Geralt?"
Yeah.
Where is Book Geralt? You're gonna have WitcherCon without Book Geralt? Yeah. I actually drew. If I remember, I drew Book Geralt in response to that. I drew him like Slav squatting with a bottle of vodka and his sword underneath, and my joke was that they couldn't see him because he was squatting.
The thing I love about it is that Geralt as a character has, I mean, you informed me when we were talking before, how like the way he's described, or in those early illustrations, he's not buff Henry Cavill, or he's not The Witcher 3. And in the games, the prime example, like Dan's playing Witcher 1 right now, where he's more of a normal-looking guy with pale skin. Then I guess Witcher 2...
Yeah, Witcher 2 is the more international market. Well, they wanted to break into the Western market, so they made him more superhero-y.
Oh, right. So then he's one of those characters where I can't think of many characters that have changed that much because of you spoke before, how we've been introduced to him. I can't really think of an example in modern fiction, like of fantasy like this, where like he has went from being kind of like, I mean, he's not described as being traditionally handsome. I know he has lots of pretty women who like the look of him, but he's in the books, he's not particularly known as for being handsome, right? I mean, I've seen those classic illustrations, I forget by the author, but they're very interesting illustrations where he makes Geralt look like an old man almost. Like,
is it Denis Gurdjieff?
I think that's it. It's like they've all kind of got the same face. Yeah, they've all
Everyone
got the same
has
face
the same
a little
face.
bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of, I can't really, like, he isn't described. The thing is that he thinks of himself poorly. When Dudu, the Doppler, turns into him at the end of the short story Eternal Flame and Sword of Destiny, he thinks, what a hideous smile I have, and what hideous eyes, and do I really squint that hideously? But it's like, that's the Geralt perspective, right? And I mean, we don't hear a Yennefer perspective on Geralt. I bet she would have a lot of nice things to say about him. So,
true.
And also, I think that we get somewhat of like a more neutral perspective and just a description of the kinds of features he has. Like Ciri in Ciri's POV in Blood of Elves Chapter 1, she sees him by the campfire and she thinks about his like angular features in the campfire.
Yes.
There's also when he meets his biological mother Vicenna in Something More. He looks at her and she looks at him, and then there's the line like, there was no similarity. She had a small chin and a small nose, suggesting that Geralt has a big chin and a big nose. And then there is that one description which Milva has of Geralt in Chapter 1 of Baptism of Fire. It was translated curiously. I know that the direct translation of what she says is like, he's a piece of man, or a huapa. He's a piece of, is it kaval huapa? It's he's a piece of man. So he's like a good, he's fit, right? He's a big, but he's also like thin. He's a hoodie, I think. But yeah, so he's thin, but a piece of man. And also in Blood of Elves Chapter 3, I think, when he's teaching Ciri on the pendulum, And then Ciri starts crying because she's like, I'm not a guy. I'll never be strong enough. And he goes, listen, Ciri, it's not about being strong enough. No strong man is going to be able to parry a Draco lizard, right? It's about being like agile and light on your feet. And, you know, so we can kind of get the sense of what Geralt looks like. I mean, for me, when I think of him, I think more of like a dancer, like a ballerina. Have you ever seen like male ballerinas? Like they're so light on their feet.
Particularly the way he's described to fight,
right?
You know,
like he's thin, but he's muscular, and he can pirouette, and he can draw semicircles, and you know, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
Maybe he looks like Chateau Copley, eh? I was telling Dan, we're going to waffle on because we've got someone who's a Witcher expert, and me, I mean, I will waffle on. He has an amazing talent because my problem is I start about 3 sentences at once, so he has to edit it down to like the right sentence. So he's like the Stephen Whisperer.
I'm happy to waffle on for as long as we need.
Yeah, great. It just feels like the easy setups of like Jaskier or Dandelion. Him being the, how does this work, Geralt? There's never like it never happens. Like these easy layups of storytelling, where I mean, I just can't believe that they pitched the show. I mean, I follow a guy. The YouTube channel is Call Me Chatter, and he's like a former TV exec, and he talked about The Witcher, and he's talked about Last of Us. He talks about it from the perspective of someone who's like worrying about ad time. And he said, if you brought The Witcher to me, I'm thinking about, great, it's a show about a cool guy with a cool sword going on adventures. So I would be pretty freaked out if you weren't just doing like, he saw it as just being a Monster of the Week show. Like if this show was pitched to me 20 years ago, I would have wanted it to have been shaped as like, it's a problem of the week thing. And I often think when I watch season 1, I'm like, God, I wish, you know, if you guys weren't going to do it, you might as well have just done Supernatural, except it's with Geralt, like, or something. Like, you might as well have just done that then. Because this, like, half and half thing is so annoying.
Yeah, I had the same intuition after watching season 4. And I know we're getting to season 4, but, like, this is kind of like a problem for the whole Netflix series. So that is the original content, the amount of original fiction, let's say, that they've put into here.
Oh, God.
And because I was watching episode 6 of season 4.
Oh, is episode 6 Battle of Hogwarts?
Yes, it is. Battle of Monte Calvo, which Monte Calvo never got invaded in the books. But, like, so I was watching this on stream, for people who tune in the stream, and they could probably see my bored face when I was watching it. Or, I mean, maybe not bored face, but I was just not commenting. I was just sort of, you know, if you watch a reaction.
I imagine your clicker would have been going off.
Well, I did try to not click them for anything that was, like, original fiction, because just totally, like, I can't say this never happened, this never, because, like, it would be going off, like, every second, right? The reason why I bring up the original content is because I was watching it, and I was like, maybe I'll get mad at myself later for saying this, but I wasn't, like, super hateful of it. Now, here's the thing. From a Witcher, like, adaptation perspective, it's trash. It's, like, offensive. It's horrible. God, yeah. But, like, I tried to think about, like, if I was just a person who knew nothing about The Witcher, quote unquote, and I was just wanting to tune in. Yes. Yeah, I just trying to tune into a fantasy show, I might be, like, you know, mildly entertained by this. And maybe it's just, like, maybe not my personal thing, but I could imagine, you know, some people being like, oh, this is a really cool, like, fight scene or battle scene. And I was just thinking, like, why didn't they just do an original IP? And you just talked about this because they need the brand recognition. But it's just so curious because, like, this isn't, like, they have the actors, they have, you know, I guess writers who definitely want to write their own thing.
Well, their most success, like Stranger Things, is an original IP.
Right, yeah.
K-pop Demon Hunters is an original IP.
Exactly. People like their original IPs.
And I actually think people are starving for it, yes.
Yeah, I just found it so curious that they would go with The Witcher, which also, I mean, I love the fandom, but also we are a bit rabid. You know, it's like, why put yourself on the cross to get crucified? And they were, like, nailing the freaking nails in their hands. But so that's my intuition, right? Is that this is a fantasy TV show for people who might like action fantasy, maybe romantasy. It's a big trend right now, but nothing too deep. But the thing is that The Witcher is a very deep series. And as you said, like, a TV exec would want to see, like, Monster of the Week or, like, cool guy with cool sword, sort of like beat 'em up style, right? But The Witcher has never been about that. And if you read just the first book, it's already
straight away
obvious, right? Yeah. And it's like Maciej Porowski, who was the editor of Fantastica because it later renamed itself in the 90s. He was like a Witcher commentator, and really he tried to like... Sapkowski is a very talented writer, but he's also somewhat reclusive, as many talented artists are, and he wasn't really the guy to, like, sell himself. So Maciej Porowski did a lot of, like, PR work, I get the sense of, for him, to talk about, like, why this series matters. So a lot of the, like, articles that we have, commentary that we have, maybe even some essays, interviews, are from Maciej Porowski. And he said... that he was like the first, I think, to coin that Sapkowski is a postmodernist, which Sapkowski totally was not into that. And he, a famous quote, he said, the interviewer asked him, why don't you like being called a postmodernist? And he says, for the same reason that I don't like being called a pederast, because I'm not one. Which, I know, his humor is just so cutting. But yeah, so he didn't like the label. But regardless of whether or not he is a postmodernist, to apply that label, and also because Porowski applied the labels of, like, intellectual, like, subversion of tropes, like, talking about all of this, like, deeper level stuff, saying that this isn't just a fantasy series, this is, something, it provides social... dilemmas and questions, right?
I completely think that. Yeah, I think he's I would
right.
say,
he totally understood the Witcher.
Yeah, I would describe The Witcher as a postmodernist work for sure. In my if I had to knee jerk it, I mean, I know that would annoy Andre, but when you look at the fantasy landscape he was in, like he's clearly talking to like Conan the Barbarian and things like that, where he's playing off that, and as we've mentioned before, a little bit of like Elric. But then when I've read Elric and I've read The Witcher, if I didn't know about the controversy, I wouldn't have put the two together. Like they are, other than like just a few things that are somewhat tangentially like similar, but I think the way he explores everything, like where with Elric, I mean, Moorcock was writing that stuff when he was in his 20s. So it's like, it's very quick, it's very flippant, like just fun, fast fantasy work with some like dark, like what if the hero was kind of a villain too, which is pretty cool in a post-Tolkien like world.
Right, yeah, you have all of these authors kind of like learning and adapting.
To Tolkien.
Yeah, reacting. Everything is reaction, right? It's sort of like design, right? Or the art world.
Exactly. So like when you look at Andre, who was like, I mean, what, the first Witcher, it was late 80s, the first story in Fantastica?
First story was December 1986, but he wrote it in 1985, and it wasn't really in readers' hands until January 1987.
Because when you look at that, I kind of throw it in with like things like Memory, Sorrow, and Fawn, which is a series I'm reading now, and also like kind of Robin Hobb, where it's like, hey, let's like move fantasy. I would say it's that postmodernist sort of situation where it's like we are bringing in real world politics. Like my favorite section so far of the books, I loved it, was when you have the Nilfgaard invasion and it's not the Uruk-hai with the dark sorcerer coming down. It's a lot of practical men figuring out, okay, we've got to move from this town to that town. 400 people are probably going to die, but we can take the crops on the way there. And I thought, that's incredible. Like, because he set it up so well. We're probably going to move a bit into the second season, which I think is a dumpster fire of a second season. I think I say again that I think they're still recovering from whatever they thought was a good idea with season 2. I think that is such a crater of nonsense. I was so annoyed they got rid of the king and the queen discussion, which they sort of worked in season 4, kind of. Where it's like that great sequence where they're all sitting around. The wizards don't know they're there. Yeah, the wizards don't know they're there. They're all there, and they're all just there privately trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I loved it. I thought it was so good.
And that's very Games of Thrones-y, isn't it? It's like sort of people talking and like doing a politics thing in a fantasy world in a castle, right? And it's sort of realistic, rounded fantasy, right?
But that's it, because I don't know how it works. I mean, I've made a few short films, but they're my short films that they're like I was the end all be all in the creation of it. So I haven't been in rooms with men or women who go, oh, you should add this because I think it's a good idea and I need to show that I've attributed something to this meeting. But I don't understand how when they went, okay, Game of Thrones is hot right now, what The Witcher does provide the political talk that you guys want. So it blows my mind that they didn't just simply do that and take those scenes that everybody loves. Like, I don't know if you've watched, but Succession. Succession is like a massive show that is fundamentally like, what if the Lannisters were in modern day and couldn't murder people? It's just a load of people in rooms talking about who's going to be the billionaire. And it's great. It's so and so when you go to the Witcher show, I was just amazed after I read Blood of Elves and then went to the second season. I wrote down things that I would expect them to change that I understand. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I haven't finished the whole series. What I would have done was I maybe would have put Yennefer there instead of Triss at Kaer Morhen. Because I don't know what Triss being there actually does to the overall story. Maybe in book 5 it all makes sense that's why Triss was there. But I'm always confused because Triss is introduced as a dragon hunting friend, and then she appears in Blood of Elves, and it's like she's old mates with the witches. They all know old Triss, and she's like wonderful. But I'm always very confused I think you probably know that it's implied Geralt and her were maybe hooking up in the breakup years after Yennefer or something.
Yeah, so this is a very controversial discussion in the fandom, but it says
I didn't know, sorry, if I've stepped on iron mine.
It's okay. You know. No, this is a good conversation. It is said that Triss seduced the Witcher with the help of a little magic. So it's also brought up in something more when Yennefer is leading a youth into the force. Not like a youth, but like a young man.
No.
He's of age.
Everyone's
he's
young
kind of
to
enchanted.
Her,
So, and that's also mentioned, this was at Bellatane, so she just sort of enchanted a youth to, go have sex with. And then in Time of Contempt, chapter 3, when they're at the Tanid Conclave, Geralt and Yennefer walking side by side, and the sorceresses are, doing they're talking, and they see Yen and Geralt, and they go like, "Oh, Geralt's not enchanted. Then he must be actually be in love with her." So it's suggested that sorceresses sort of do this, and there's more discussion to be had about why Sapkowski put this in. Sometimes he goes a little bit too crazy with the what if women had a lot of powers thing, and so, but of course his intention was never to be feminist or even egalitarian. It's just sort of a what if situation, right? It's kind of like the novel The Power, where women suddenly get electric shocky powers. So it's not meant to be progressive. It's just a hypothetical, right? That's beside the point. So what Triss and Geralt actually had is Triss seduced him with the help of a little magic, but we don't really know if Geralt was consensually seduced. I don't know if there's such a thing as consensually seduced.
They didn't do that. They slapped her in the what's it called? The Witcher, the original Witcher story. They just kind of slapped Triss in there as the sorceress helping out Fotes.
Yeah, because she's Temerian, I guess. But yeah, so going back to the question of would they put Yennefer in there? I think because what you haven't got to is in Lady of the Lake, chapter 8. It's the Battle of Brenna chapter, and Triss has sort of a moment there. And also there's how do I say it? The aftermath of some of what went on in Blood of Elves. The reason why I think that Triss is in Blood of Elves in Kaer Morhen is because she is not just there about Geralt. I think that's sort of a red herring, or it's a side plot, but it's not really the core plot. Triss is a veteran of Sodden Hill, as many of the sorceresses were, right? She's 14th of the Hill. She was supposed to die there. She lived, and as a result, she's kind of become consumed by her cowardice now, because she doesn't want to be on the freaking battlefield again and get mangled in fire and experience something so traumatic again, right? Coral literally got ripped to shreds, right next to her. So she presents this perspective on war that's she says, if I need to stand on the hill again, I will do it. But the reason why she joins the Lodge of Sorceresses later is because she wants to be on the winning side that doesn't go onto the battlefield themselves. The Lodge of Sorceresses don't actually defend Monte Calvo from a giant invasion by Vilgefortz. They sit in their little circle and they dictate how the war happens. And this is sort of I guess, not even allegory. It's just sort of a representation of how this happens in the real world, because in the 90s, wars were being controlled from desk tables anyways, and I guess they have since freaking Roman Empire, since before then anyways.
Well, have you watched Blackadder Goes to War?
No, I haven't.
It's you know what Blackadder is, sorry?
Is it? It's something. No, I don't.
It's Rowan Atkinson. It's you know Mr. Bean. It's Rowan Atkinson's other series where he plays different versions of Blackadder in different historical settings, and the final one is World War One, where he's just like a general in the trench or something, and it's only 6 episodes, and at the end, Stephen Fry, who's like the general, the person in charge, they go to him before the big attack, and he's just sweeping away soldiers off a board because he knows they're just going to die. So he's like, "Oh yes, come on in." And he's just casually sweeping them and chucking them over his shoulder. He's
that's
just like,
pretty
"Oh
much
yeah,
the
like that's going to happen."
In Lady of the Lake,
yeah.
So I think that is why Triss is there, because also in Blood of Elves Chapter 3, they have like this big discussion with Triss and the Witchers about neutrality, and I don't think that Yennefer would have necessarily had the same viewpoints as Triss, and also there's like this whole thing with the Geralt-Yennefer dynamic, right? So Geralt asked Triss to Kaer Morhen because he's too chicken shit to ask Yennefer, because they're not together at the moment and he doesn't want to offend her, and he's like, "Oh, I can't ask her, Triss, can you help me?" And Triss, of course, thinks she's asked there because maybe Geralt likes her and wants to get back with her. Sorry, girl. Sorry.
Because when you watch how they do it in the show, it's like, at one point he thinks Yennefer is obviously dead, because he thinks, like, it takes him a while to realise, right, that she's... I'm forgetting now, because season 2 is such a pit in my memory.
I remember him and Ciri trying to look on the battlefield for her and running into Tissaia.
Oh, mate, he's looking into, like, how everyone died, but she never finds how... Like, she never stumbles across a body that showed Vilgefortz killed them, even though he looked like he was pretty trigger-happy. So,
it's so
weird.
It's one of those... Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I'm just remembering because they didn't do the part from Something More, which is like...
which annoys me beyond belief. Because he's there, like the ex-boyfriend who's there once, who they've managed to keep him around.
Who is only supposed to be in a shard of ice. He just got promoted again.
It's the same with, what's his name? The guy who has no hands.
Riense?
Stregobor.
Oh, Stregobor.
Like they keep working Stregobor into this fucking show.
It's like I wouldn't mind if they worked some of the other characters into, but like have a point to it, you know? Like, for example, Yarp and Zigrin in season 4, for some reason, I kind of not really enjoyed, but like I could see what they were doing with him at the end of the season, like turning back to sort of show that, the real heroes will go on. Not everybody has the guts to go on, he sees his death, so he goes back. I'm like, okay, fair, whatever. But how to adapt The Witcher, like, for an audience on a visual adaptation, right? And I think that, like, turning it into, maybe not TV show in general, because TV can be quite, like, deep and... I don't know, like really getting into the weeds and like asking deep questions. So I'm not ruling out TV entirely or like serialized episodes, but I feel like a more cinema approach needs to be taken with The Witcher. And this is like why I'm confused, because their marketing their target audiences are just like, okay, we got the gamers because like there's a game, people like game, we put Henry Cavill, he likes game. We have gamers on board.
From a marketing perspective, it makes sense to get the ultimate nerd of Henry Cavill. I understand.
Then we also want to reach out to marginalized audiences, which sometimes don't get along so well with the gamers, even though that there are tons of people who belong to marginalized identities who also are gamers, but like Gamergate and all of this so on, sometimes there's discourse there. But like we're trying to marry these two factions together, and then also we're trying to appeal to American audiences who don't know about The Witcher, but then we're also trying to snag the Central European audience who also knows about The Witcher, and it's just like, guys, just choose a lane, pick a lane, do that.
I think you, as in the hardcore book fans, were probably bottom of the list, if I'm honest. Like, I think like, we've already got them. They're gonna take whatever we give them because they're desperate. It's like you're parked in the desert
after
and you're just
after this, which is 2001 adaptation, which was the
Yes.
live action adaptation. Yes, people were like very thrilled, which isn't to hate on the VG from 2001. But people were pretty desperate. So
I felt with Game of Thrones because I watched the show, then I've read the books, and now when I was rewatching it, because I was watching it alongside The Witcher, just trying to see how, like, why is this show getting me more than this one? But I felt those guys were adapting it because they really, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of culturally what the Red Wedding is.
like
they were
murder
yeah,
scene.
they were making adaptation choices to make the Red Wedding scene more brutal. So they did a good job of building up. It felt like they were only thinking about that, going, it's going to be so good when we get to the Red Wedding. So they change who Robb Stark marries. They make it more about a love story with Robb Stark, when in the book it's more of a political, oh, this had to happen because I slept with a woman of a minor house and now I have to marry her because I'm a respectful Stark guy. Where in that they made it that he just fell in love with a woman. So I felt the reason why they did that was so they went, oh, that'll make the Red Wedding scene even more insane because he genuinely loved it and stuff like that. And while that's all good when you're thinking just about the Red Wedding, what happened is all the little choices they made then just kind of, as George spoke about in one of his blog posts, the butterfly effect, how these little innocent choices, where I think that these guys very early on were bringing in the sledgehammer and were like, no.
Yes.
And season 2 has no subtlety whatsoever.
They got the bulldozer for season 2. They got the nuclear bombs.
Seemingly, they got the corkboard out and went, what was Yennefer up to? And I've always found it interesting, mate, because when I read these books, and maybe just because of my Western, from the school of Tolkien, I internally trilogy them. I put Blood of Elves and Time of Contempt as one book. I think they really work well together.
Oh, that was actually Sapkowski's intention, yes. It was intended, the saga was intended to be a trilogy, but he didn't want to wait too long in between books, so there's like an Act 1, an Act 2, and an Act 3.
Because that's what it is. Because then when I'm reading Blood of Elves and Time of the Swallow, I'm like, oh, well, these work perfectly together as well. So when you were saying in your video that Blood of Elves is this, like, loved or hate, I view, because I've counted the series now, that it's complete to the point where he's doing additional books. So now I'm just reading it as just one big continuous story. Like when I was trying to describe it to Dan, it's not like so much that each book ends, now that I understand what you've told me, it's like, sometimes it is just like, and there are your 7 chapters from this book, and here's 7 more chapters in this book. It just feels
and he
like
had to write
one
like very
continuous
quickly
tale.
as to not lose the audience. Yeah, so like he was like kind of because it's like if you see the publication date, I mean it's like 1994, 1995, 1996, 1997, 1999. There's a little bit of delay, but he did it pretty quickly, right?
Well,
Yeah, because
but
he didn't.
That opens it up to me.
Yeah,
a bit.
he knew that his
sense,
readers were also like, I mean, because I remember that there was actually in the December edition of Fantastica, there was like this poll of readers to show like the demographics, and it was mostly like young men reading, which is I guess kind of general for fantasy. Although in another interview in Historia y Fantastica, Sapkowski said that his readership was like 50-50 in gender ratios. But yeah, so he like knew that his readership skewed younger because that was just generally like kind of how fantasy is.
Right on.
But like 20s, 30s, mostly guys, but also some 40-year-olds in there. But yeah, so he knew that they would like if he waited too long, they would lose interest and he would be left without an audience. And also he lost his job because it was, controlled by the government because everything changed, communist system, right, to the capitalist system.
I appreciate it for that because as a, I don't know, but as a avid Kingkiller fan, if you know the Kingkiller works, I am waiting. The book 3 is about 16 years later, so we're waiting still.
Yeah.
So I could appreciate him for
series
that
as well, right? And we were just talking about A Song of Ice and Fire as well. So.
Oh, God, like that one hurts as well. Particularly because I'm like, that's my favourite series that I can't call it my favourite series because it's not finished. So I can't allow myself to logically call it that because it's not a finished work, at least for my own self-rules. I was always curious because Lauren in all those interviews, and you touched on them too in your initial big long video, she just for some reason was petrified of Blood of Elves. So when I read Blood of Elves, I was like, what's so scary about this?
Yeah.
It seems pretty easy to me. And I know obviously she works in the industry. It's a hard thing. She obviously has talent. She's worked on big productions. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the woman doesn't have talent. She clearly does.
Yeah.
But considering what they chose to do with Witcher Season 1, which I can understand why someone who's came from maybe the Marvel shows are like, oh, good, Monster of the Week, he can kill some stuff. They didn't exactly do that. They had the Ciri plot line, which was, I mean, just her wandering around looking lost, waiting for Geralt to get her. And they get rid of the actual amazing story of them meeting each other and shooting snot out of each other's nose and all that. Like, they get rid of that,
No sort of
which I would have
destiny
thought.
and the adaptation of sort of destiny.
Yeah, like they get rid of that and kind of have Ciri do that as a solo adventure somewhat.
Oh my God.
When she goes to Broccolin. But when they get to Blood of Elves, and I was reading it, I was like, this seems really, like, in our video, which you might not have watched, I said, I feel like Season 2, you could have done Blood of Elves in 4 or 5 episodes, and you could have got to the Faned coup and end on the Faned coup of Season 2. Maybe you're cutting stuff out, but I was like, pace-wise, I feel like you could have managed that in 8 or 10 episodes. So I didn't understand their logic of, we're going to have to fan fiction out Blood of Elves, but then in Season 3, we're just going to put in the Blood of Elves scenes anyway, except Yennefer's there. And so I just am so... I have to think Season 3 was reactionary. Like, I wasn't paying attention at the time. But people, when they talk about it now, they talk about Season 2 like, Season 2 was okay, but Season 3 was when it got bad. But I think of it as Season 3 as being
Season 2 was the worst, because it was all original material, right?
Yeah, but what was their logic, though?
That's the question I'll answer, because this was actually cut from my Rise and Fall video because I got a copyright claim on it, because I had a screenshot of tweets from Lauren Hisrick, put over the tree escal sequence, and YouTube was like, that's tree escal, you can't use that, so I had to delete the whole thing. But basically during that point I read aloud some of the tweets, and Lauren Hisrick went on this Twitter thread where she apologized for tree escal and basically explained their logic behind adding more stuff to Season 2. And the logic was that after returning from the delay because of the pandemic, and also with the pandemicified audience, because they were expecting shorter attention spans, they really were afraid that the audience would lose interest in a more, heady show, a more philosophical show with, all of these, conversations and dialogues and, talking like regular human beings do. And they were like, we need to add action. So action was the name of the game when they adapted Season 2. And I can kind of understand that, but
I do and I don't.
It was kind of like what Tomek Baginski was talking about with we need to appeal to the TikTok generation. I'm part of the TikTok generation myself. I'm freaking elder Gen Z, I guess.
So you second screening, are you, the whole time? You're because they talk about that apparently. We need to make sure we've got shows that people could conceivably be looking at their phone. And with that horrifying idea, I'd argue The Witcher could be that show, since the books are so talky. Obviously, it's very deep, philosophical. You have to pay attention to what we're saying. But from that logic, one could be looking at their phone while listening to it.
But even with Season 1, I feel like it's just... from my videos and from my channel that the issue that I take with the Netflix show is that I call it anti-intellectual, because I really find that it is, because it's trying to get you to not think, whereas the books are trying to get you to think. As I said, Sapkowski was writing for a younger audience. He kind of knew that. So, of course, he kind of has, he as a writer, he wrote the first story when he was 38 years old. And then, he was writing in his 40s and he was giving interviews into his 50s and 60s. And so, and then now he's sort of like a grandfather to the fandom, whether people like him or not. I appreciate his words of wisdom.
Oh yeah, well you've technically interviewed him, technically,
yes. So it's nice to have that sort of, it's like Ciri and Visigoda, kind of.
There you go.
Right, because you have the youth who's like, I don't understand the world, I'm so tortured, and then the old man teaching her ethics, right, or reminding her of ethics.
I keep waiting for something to happen with that because he keeps repeating but nobody came and looked in the hut. I keep waiting for the moment where somebody comes to look in the hut because he keeps
There's a theory on
it.
that. There's a theory on that.
I might have to
but you haven't
pick your
met him
brains
yet
on
because
that.
you're only on chapter 6. But you'll meet him next chapter.
Okay, cool.
Just quickly about like season 1 stuff for The Witcher. I feel like TV show was the wrong way to adapt it, or maybe like you can do maybe a TV show that really cares about like the book and like sticks to the book dialogues, okay? But I think that like a better direction for the show would have been more like, I don't know how to say, like cinema, film. Like when I think of The Witcher being adapted, like I mean, like imagine it, I think of like Robert Eggers, like the Witch. Sort of like
yes.
we need A24 to adapt The Witcher. We don't need Marvel writers to adapt The Witcher. We don't need the woman who worked on the Umbrella Academy to do The Witcher.
Visually, we've always, and people have talked about it, that the lack of like Polish architecture, and then we complain about the grade.
Yes, the color grading in the show is so terrible.
The Robert Eggers grade would have been perfect, and I know they almost sort of have it in season 1, but in season 2 they just go like color, like high saturation, and then by season 3 and 4 it's just like a naturalistic, we can't be fucked sort of like color grade, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so like it's just interesting because it's like the show has an identity crisis. This is the guiding theme for all of the conversation of the show because it doesn't know what it wants to be or who it wants to be for, because it's taking something it's we're calling these books intellectual, right? It's taking an intellectual property, making it for anti-intellectuals or people who don't want to engage in that stuff, because it's a TV show. You want to watch something, turn your brain off. I do that too, right? Everyone does that sooner or later, whenever they feel like, right? But then it's also taking a Polish series and making it for Americans, which, okay, that's great too. But you need to be careful when you're doing that, right? Because there's cultural nuances and things that get lost, and sometimes we just bulldoze the entire thing and just whitewash the whole thing, and we don't even know what it's about anymore. And then we're trying to get the gamer audience. We're trying to get people who are first-time fantasy watchers. I think that one thing that the show really missed the opportunity for, or like just sort of didn't understand, was that The Witcher, and maybe also I'm kind of guilty of this as well because I am not very experienced in fantasy myself yet, but The Witcher is, as we talked about, kind of like postmodernist, even if Sapkowski is not like that term. It's kind of playing off of a lot of fantasy tropes and cliches and ideas, and I think that like my personal opinion is like you don't need to be an expert in fantasy to enjoy The Witcher because all of these tropes and cliches are just baked into Western like media in general. Yeah, and it's like if you've also like if you've watched Disney movies as a kid, like you'll know what is being talked about when we talk about fairy tales, right? But like for example, I don't know, I always go back to Regis in my head, and from my videos that I love Regis and he's like one of my favorite characters. But like
he looked like a character out of What We Do in the Shadows in this season.
Oh my god, don't insult What We Do in the Shadows like that.
Sorry.
No,
but he looked like he he looked like they just went, that's a vampire, right? Matthew Berry, we'll just do that
exactly.
here.
And like in the book, he's supposed to be this inversion and subversion and playing with the cliches of vampires, which they have the whole conversation about in chapter 7.
You mean he's not sniffing blood?
Oh my god, yeah. We were talking about like casting and diversity and representing in fantasy, right? And the thing is that like I like Lawrence Fishburne as an actor, but I also like when I think about Regis, right? Regis is supposed to be a subversion, not in appearance, because he looks literally like stereotypical vampire, right? So we have to go back to Bela Lugosi, or is it Lugosi? I'm not sure. A Hungarian actor. Famous for his portrayal of Dracula, right? The Dracula standard, right? And Regis even calls his mule Dracula in Tower of the Swallow, chapter 3. Can't forget the mule. But so it's like we have to take basically Dracula and make him like a chill guy who does herbology on the side and is a doctor, right? It's also kind of like, I mean, from the book Dracula more like, but like kind of a combination. Regis as a character is kind of a combination of Dracula the vampire and Van Helsing the kind of timid doctor who's just there to be like, let me try and save this girl, right? That's his prerogative.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about like that, I think that's I brought this up because I feel like, you know, when we're talking about like appearance changes, like, does it really matter? I think that like when you make changes, you have to really deeply read the book and try to engage with it and understand like, okay, if we change this, does it matter? Does it actually change something? For example, also, Milva's braid, right? She has like in the book, she has a plate. This is more relevant in Tower of the Swallow. In actual Baptism of Fire, her braid is never mentioned, which is very curious on a reread. But in Tower of the Swallow, chapter 3, she cuts her braid off because of her miscarriage, and that's how she's coping with her trauma. And she says, you know, I'm not a maiden anymore. You know, I'm not, what does she say? Like, she says, like, I'm not a widow and I'm not a child. Or, you know, it's basically the braid is like this symbol, this very big symbol for her of her relation to her womanhood, to femininity, just her identity, right? And she cuts it off. And it's like very, it's very brash. It's very Milva. It's like, I did a decision, boom, that's my decision. Regis is the opposite. Regis is like, okay, forethought. We have to think about this. We have to think about this. Think. And then Milva's just like, done. But that's another example of like, this is an appearance change, right? So we can't just say that appearance never matters, because obviously for these characters, it has some relevant symbolism, right? Also, I forgot to mention, but like, I'm doing a little essay on this now, but like Dracula, Eastern European identity, Bela Lugosi as Dracula in the media when, you know, in the 1930s and everything surrounding that, like anti-Eastern European sentiments, right? So we're talking about like a lot of sort of, I would say like important historical context as well. So when we're talking about appearance, it matters sometimes and sometimes it doesn't matter. Like also like Milva's hair color. I mean, her hair color is mentioned twice in the books and doesn't really matter. So maybe she can have black hair but have a braid, you know?
Yeah, it's like, it's why I never get too fussed when people talk about that, like Snape not being like Adam Driver or whatever, like being a pale white guy, because I'm like, well, it's not fundamental to his character that he's a pale guy with a hook nose. Yes, he's described like that in the book, but the book isn't like gospel. Like, they got the right actor who was available for 10 years, so here he is. And like, I don't think it's in. Maybe you could argue that actor's maybe too handsome to play Snape. We could have that discussion. But I don't think it's important exactly what his skin colour is in that case as well. But I do understand,
but that's the thing. You have to understand what is fundamental to the character and what is not fundamental.
Exactly.
And you can only do that by reading the book.
Like, can we say Lauren, I know this just sounds incredibly rude, but has she actually read the books? Has she actually sat down and went...
I have read them dozens of times.
But then, as you pointed out in your recent one, that the lack of... And I was surprised too, because as someone who's read Baptism of Fire, that Geralt's knee really does his head in the whole time. That, yes. Like, that the... Yes. And that, like, they say, you shouldn't have left Broccolon so soon, because your knee's still fucked. But in this, it's like, you know, he puts a chemical on it.
It's a wound from a wraith that doesn't exist. I mean, this maybe is not in the reading, at least, but, like, in, you know, Sapkowski's author commentary, like when we were talking about like we were also talking about Elric, right, who is similar to Geralt in the sense that they are both, I would say, type B heroes, the King Arthur type from Sapkowski's analysis of heroes. I talked about this more in my Crossroads of Ravens essay, but basically this is a hero who had power but has lost it, who has been handicapped in some way, and so, you know, in like with Elric, he's like lost his power. He has to take herbs. He has to freaking summon demons to help him.
He has to drink people's souls.
Yes, everything's sort of on the decline. He's trying to save his freaking, or, you know, retain power of his dying kingdom. And Geralt, you know, Geralt is not a politician. He's not a king. He's not even really anybody important, except, you know, a legend. Later becomes a legendary figure.
He's like a janitor, you know.
Yeah, basically. He's a Janny. He's sort of also like an ecologist or a pest removal, I guess.
Yeah, although, it's pest removal at the most extreme sense, yes.
Yes, Sapkowski was quite influenced by the character Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe, who was a detective, crime fiction from the 1930s, American crime fiction, which was
that makes sense
quite
too.
interesting as a lead. Yeah, so he's like sort of going into these like dark streets and, you know, maybe not a monster, but like a mobster with a gun, or like a femme fatale, right? Like maybe a girl who you don't think is dangerous, but then she has sharp teeth. And also, of course, a redhead.
Yeah, it's what the games, because I know the games are, like, the way I approach this stuff is that, like, as the reader or the consumer of a work, I can decide what is or isn't canon. So when with Star Wars, I can go, yes, the main trilogy, Andor, maybe a bit of Mandalorian, that's Star Wars canon for Stephen. Like, all the rest can go away. So I understand that there are some people who maybe look at the games as the continuation of the Witcher story, and are happy with that, which I'm sure Sapkowski loves. And but when I played Witcher 3, and now when I go thinking back to it, it's like, they were a truthful adaptation in the sense of, like, the Bloody Baron story feels like a Sapkowski short story.
You've nailed something important here, yes. Yes, because I feel like no one is saying that, like, you can't add anything. You know, it's sort of like
it's got to be true.
Yeah, it's like, I guess I kind of compared it on stream to, like, you know, this is a recipe that's been handed down for generations, and it's, like, a culturally important recipe, we might say, right? So it's like you want to do it justice, right? It's like, okay, you want to add something different, you know, different cultures do it differently. Some people might add a different ingredient here or there, or, you know, adjust the salt content to your preference, you know, but then it's like we had a recipe for sour soup and you've made tacos instead.
Yes,
and it's like, well, waiter, I didn't order this. I didn't pay $8.99 monthly for this. Can you please take it back and give me what I ordered?
I think, yeah. They've tossed aside even their original goals now. So it's like, well, whatever they thought they were doing with this story, they've got rid of. Like, Dan hasn't read the book, so I was messaging him going, what the hell's Kira Metz doing? What the fuck? They just killed Kira Metz. Like, you know, like, I remember Kira Metz as my first love from the game, because when I was playing it, I was like, who's this awesome character coming out of the bath? Like, 20-year-old Stephen was very impressed with the game. But when I was, so when I see that to me, that whole bank sequence was, I guess the actress wasn't available. I can't think of reasons why they wouldn't want Kira in the lodge, given that all the women in the lodge this season are just happy to help each other. Why not just have her there also waving her hands while the special effects happen?
I don't know.
Just feels very strange.
I don't know. It's very strange. It's like they did kill off like a lot of the canon characters, or at least a significant. I can remember 3. I can remember Kira Metz, Margarita Loenti, and then Vesemir, who all got killed off in season 4. And also, it's funny because, like, Vesemir dies and it's not even like a big thing.
Oh god, it was a big thing for me.
I actually went to go see The Witcher in concert, which was really good.
Yes,
by the way. But I replayed Witcher 3, like the sort of mostly like first act and the last act, so 1 and 3, for my May video about, like, The Witcher 3 saved my life, like my personal story of how I got into The Witcher.
Yes.
But I hadn't really replayed the Battle of Kaer Morhen because, like, I didn't kind of really want to replay it because, like, I'm not a great at video games, and I already had struggled having to beat the crones. So I was just like, I can't replay a Battle of Kaer Morhen right now. So I didn't. But during the concert, you know, they basically take you through the whole game. And one of the scenes, which they did, was Vesemir's death. So I got to watch it on the big screen with an orchestra playing. And, like, when I first played the game, I was like, okay, this is really sad. I get it. It's, like, character motivation. I wasn't, like, too moved because you don't really spend much time with Vesemir. This was my first introduction to The Witcher, right?
Yeah.
And then also, like, as a books fan, then I became, you know, more into the books. I was like, well, he's alive in the books, so I don't really care, I guess, you know, whatever. But when I watched it in the concert, I was like, I actually started crying and being like, no, Vesemir! So, like, it's like, it's just the care that you present when you do something that big, you know, that's such a, and what you're actually using the death for and why it happens. You know, it's like, you can make a change, you can add something new, but, like, okay, why? And how does this affect the characters? And how does this affect the story going forward? It's just like, the writing is clumsy and it doesn't even respect itself because they're making more issues for themselves going forward in the writing.
Is Geralt told by Yennefer, oh, by the way, your dad died, Soz?
Yes, like, and she tells him Istrid died first. She's like, Istrid's dead. Also, Vesemir, your father died also.
Yeah,
But whatever,
yes.
let's just have sex. And then he's like, okay.
I mean, there's things in season 4 that blew me away that I wanted to ask you once again, the Witcher Scholar. How did the guy at the checkpoint get to what's it called, Nilfgaard so quickly? like the whole story is Geralt trying to. Yeah, like so you know the guy who at the end of season 3, Henry Cavill's big farewell fight scene is he beats up the guys at the checkpoint, and then in our first episode of season 4. When we get to Emperor in Nilfgaard, the checkpoint guy comes in going, Geralt just beat my ass. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do about that? And Dan went, how did he get there so quickly? Because Geralt's whole thing is he's trying to get...
Maybe a sorcerer teleported him.
But that's exactly what we said. Well, Kira Metz was doing teleportation on the side. Maybe that's what he did. Because I was there going, okay, we're just some idiots in Australia in our shorts, and we're pointing this out. How is it that it's people whose job it is to write this stuff? How is that nobody went, hang on a minute. Yeah. Isn't that just a little bit of an inconsistency, given that our main character's whole goal is trying to get to where the Emperor is?
Yes, right? It's like it brings up the plot hole of like, why not just find a sorcerer and let them teleport you there?
But this is my other question that we've been... So in the books, I'm fully aware that teleportation exists. In the games, I know teleportation is there, and Geralt doesn't like it. But I think Sapkowski gets sort of around it was... He doesn't really go into it too much. And there is, at least from what I remember, there's a general sense that this stuff's really difficult. It's a bit woolly. Even those who are good at it, it's not perfect, and it takes a lot of time to prepare. You can't just throw one up like a projection screen. It's like there has to be like...
You can, but you have to be a quite accomplished sorcerer. So, for example, I'll give the example from Blood of Elves Chapter 1. Riense cannot make portals himself because he dropped out of Banard. He kind of like he flunked out of sorcerer school, and that's why he's working for Vilgefortz. You might consider Vilgefortz like the freaking like red-pilled podcaster who's like, by the way, women are at fault for everything in the world, and you should trust me. And then Riense is like his most valued subscriber or whatever. You know, he follows his every word because he's like, this guy knows what he's talking about. So Riense is kind of like a buffoon of a villain, really. He's sort of the small minion of Vilgefortz who gets nicked off before they actually get to Vilgefortz. But, so Riense cannot make a portal himself. Vilgefortz makes the portal for him to escape from Yennefer. Right. And this is something that Yennefer points out when she's later talking with Dandelion in the scene. Like, that wasn't his portal. Someone else made it. He didn't throw it up.
Because in the show... It's seemingly everyone can throw a portal and go wherever they want to.
Throw them up, yeah. It's just weird.
It's like, because I look at it, because our favourite film that's terrible is the Hayden Christensen Jumper film. And that, like, establishes that one must have a knowledge of where they are going. They might even have to physically have been there before. So the little thing of Yennefer, she teleports directly to where Geralt is, which I can only assume is the way the trick was. She went, take me to where Geralt is.
Yeah,
and
that's
so why not do that for Ciri?
Strange. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. That opens a whole plot hole. It's just so weird because also, like, I mean, The Witcher does have these really... Like, it is high fantasy in the sense as we are defining high fantasy as occurring in a secondary world, right? Not low fantasy because not occurring in our world. Yes. Right, yes. It's a whole separate world. The continent is a separate Earth, planet, reality, whatever. And, like, so... There is that, but then The Witcher also is quite grounded in its fantasy. I mean, yes, of course, it depends on the book, it depends on the story, but Baptism of Fire, for, as you mentioned, like with the Nilfgaardian invasion, it's very grounded, and I would say also like rooted in historical allegory, or at least references or inspiration, right? With the invasion of Poland in 1939, it's like this huge parallel, or all these parallels. So like
which I just ignored or didn't care about.
Yeah, like everyone, like the writers ignoring this in season 4 and just doing fantasy, like everyone portals, everyone. It's like, I'm surprised they don't have Ciri riding on unicorn horseback already, which, I mean, she does in Lady of the Lake, but Lady of the Lake is like, you know, when the orchestra starts booming and all of the, you know, shots start firing.
With Dandelion, how when we're first introduced to him at the temple, he's on about like pinching girls' arses at the gate or something. Yeah, and then, so I really liked it how when he's telling Geralt, he's like, so disgusted where he's like, they shook hands on the bridge. Like,
Yes.
he's
Yes.
pissed off at this. And I feel Geralt, I feel the way Dandelion is in this. I think, the actor, we always say, we've got largely nothing wrong with the cast. I think they are doing what they've got, and they're doing it as best as they can. But he does not. The Dandelion, the Jaskier we've got here is not the one of the book, and it just feels like they have the same joke every time, where he's sort of lightly improving, and then he goes, "Oh, well, now you're going to kill me." Is basically the joke. He does that every single time.
It's quite repetitive, and it's quite annoying also because Dandelion in the book is there to give insights and balance out Geralt's character, and he is a fool, but it's less
for Geralt's sake.
Yeah, it's not just that he is ridiculous. It's that the whole situation is ridiculous. Like with Eternal Flame, right? Dandelion isn't the only funny thing in Eternal Flame. We have, like, the whole situation of, like, Geralt in Novigrad and then Merchant Beaverveld, right? Merchant Beaverveld, the halfling, or, well, he's a hobbit in Polish, but we can't use hobbit because it's copyrighted by Tolkien Estate, so he's a halfling instead. But then, he got robbed by the Doppler, and it's like, shape-shifting is like a comedy troupe anyways. But yeah, so it's like, and then
Shakespearean.
Yes, and the whole point, or like their whole goal in Eternal Flame is to get to the Passiflora, which is a brothel. And they get it there by the end of the book, and they, go off, and they're all happy, right? And that's very comedy. So like just understanding that it's not like, the problem that I have with Netflix Jaskier is, well, one, he's not a tenor, he's a castrato, because we've just totally removed his sexuality entirely. Which is just like, maybe that's a little inappropriate joke to make, I'm just joking, it's all fun. But yeah, it's just so annoying
I just love that was
like,
your first point.
Yeah, they
like I thought you were about to go, he's blonde, goddammit, or something.
Oh yes, he is blonde as well. Yes, right. It's like they've kind of just missed the point of him. Also because like Geralt, when we're talking about like sexuality, right? Geralt is like, he has a sexuality, but he's like also like quite repressed about it. In Season of Storms, there's this line when he's looking at the sorceress Coral. He's having a moment with her, and she's like, "You're staring at my breasts as if you were 15. If it's your first time and you're 15."
Yeah.
And then Geralt says, "Well, I never really was 15. And it's always my first time." This is books Geralt, right? And it's like, I think, as we were talking about, the idea of him has become a little bit mangled in this game of telephone of adaptation. So now we have, like, super, how are we to describe Henry Cavill and maybe Witcher 3 Geralt as well, banging every sorceress he sees and such like that. And in the books, there is a little bit of that with Fringilla Vigo and stuff like that, but it's not, Geralt has this insecurity about him, about how he relates to people. And Jaskier, Dandelion, does not have that. Dandelion is like, we need to go and have some fun. Let's go to a festival. Let's go to a village. Let's go and eat some food, and let's have some drink, and let's have a good old time. And Geralt's like, well, maybe I can find some work there. So, okay. So we have the kind of like philanderer and workaholic working together.
Which you think would, as we go back to, would be a TV exec or TV writer's dream. Be like, great, the straight man, it's Shrek and Donkey from afar. If you pitched it to someone, you'd go, oh, it's Game of Thrones meets Shrek or something, is what you might say to someone in a room.
That is pretty,
potentially.
Yeah.
Because there is that humour, like, I know he was kind of like, it was very much like the start of a play in the start of Blood of Elves, where they're all met around the oak tree and it's all the different races of people. I was like, where's that scene? Because that would be cool to show, like, the diversity of the world, to set up, like, here's how it's looking right now. But the show really struggles overall with exactly how it is. I mean, I know we were talking about teleportation. We will get back to that from a, like, teleportation will break anything if you don't explain it properly or limit it properly, because we're just here going, why doesn't Yennefer just teleport to Ciri then? Teleport to Ciri then, if it's that simple. When you look at exactly how they did, because in the books, I get the sense that, like, the elves, like the proper elves that we think about, like the Tolkien-style elves, are kind of gone. And the Scoia'tael, or the squirrels, are the young elves. They've got that passion to fight what they want. But I get the sense that other elves that are working in the city, they aren't what we saw in season 2. Like, they
Oh
are
God, no.
part elf or of elf descent, maybe. But
Yes.
we aren't rounding people up. Like, it's weird that that's the World War II allegory they took. Was
They
the
did it
rounding
so
up of people.
insensitively.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like
They're like,
it's
in you get,
yeah.
like that kind of attitude. And then when you've got Yashgir, because Dan brought up in the review that Yashgir calls one of the elves pointy, which I can
Oh
only
my
imagine
God.
in this world would be a rude,
They're like
vaguely
making
racist term. And so
Uh,
then in Witcher 2, he's like running the underground network. And it's not like it's because he was singing songs about how, or maybe it's implied that's why, but he's a guy who got his fame from the fact that he was singing songs about how the Witcher defeated the elves. But they don't bring that up. They
God.
don't make that
Yeah.
his, like, which would have been cool. I would have been into that, like, if they were going to go that way. But they don't. They just have it be he's just like, oh, look, we gave him a beard this time and he's wearing the hat. You should be pleased.
Yeah.
And my ultimate point was that in the books, how are the elves do we see elves in cities being working people? We don't, do we?
We don't much.
It very much surprised me when I was reading the book when we cut to the framing device of an old man telling the story of The Witcher. I was like, well, that's interesting. And obviously, as you fully well know about, how he's commenting on like fairy tales and fantasy and how things become legend. And I loved the ending of Baptism of Fire. It's one of my favourite things where he actually becomes Geralt of Rivia. It's wonderful. And it has a humour to it that the show didn't quite deliver on. Like that, it's so... Like, of course this would happen to Geralt. Like, it just makes sense that would be the moment he would get knighted. When I look at this, they then use the framing device, I felt, to be like... Because I remember when Lawrence spoke about it, it's going to be in lore makes sense. So when season 3 dropped, I went straight to episode 8, and I was expecting a Doctor Who style regeneration. That, like, Henry steps into the light and comes out as Liam Hemsworth. I thought something like that was going to happen. But instead, I mean, look... It's not the worst idea in the world that they've went, it's all just a story, and here we are summarising it, and it's sort of... But as I was saying to Dan, I just thought they've overthought it. I honestly think your best option was just have it be Liam now, and that's it. Things happen in the real world. Actors leave. Here's the new actor. We don't need to worry about it too much.
Fine. You know, like, this is such a random reference to pull, but as a kid, I really loved the sitcom Bewitched with Elizabeth Montgomery. It's like from the 60s.
Yes.
But, you know, there's Darren Stevens, who's Samantha's husband, and famously first portrayed by Dick York, and then by another actor, and I forgot his name. But, like, I was always a fan of, like, the Dick York, Darren Stevens. And then it's just, like, it switched. And then it's, like, you know, they have a new dad now. That's kind of like what happened with The Witcher, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, I think in Fresh Prince they did that where the mother changes and they acknowledge, you look different. Like, there's a full-on, like, wink to the audience.
It works because it's a sitcom, yeah.
Yes, sitcoms is different, of course. Yes.
Yeah. I think, like, the thing is that with the whole plot line with Nimue, not me Nimue, but Netflix Nimue.
No, of course.
I don't think it was a bad idea. The execution of the idea, however, is different than the idea itself. Let me lead with, like, I knew that this was happening because I read an interview from Redanian Intelligence with Tomek Baginski, and he was saying, like, we're going to do it, you know, in accordance with the lore or with the books, and it makes sense in the books, so, you know. I don't think that the idea necessarily of having the actor change be chalked up to, oh, they're in the book, you know, Geralt is a legend, so we're going to focus on the legend. I think that's a fair idea of it. But the thing is, like, it's just so when they, like, it's just cheesy in the show when they reshot everything, all the scenes with Liam instead. And I get that this is how Netflix Witcher rolls. Like, this is their bread and butter. This is how they do their show. This is how they decorate their house. Who am I to just, like, disdain their design choices. But
one could argue it's not their house in a sense, but yes, I understand. You know.
It was Sapkowski's house flat, and then they rented it, and now they're trashing it.
I imagine you saw Lauren's interview where she's basically going like, the books are fine, okay? Like, she's hit us with that now. Like, like there's different ways to tell this story. This is just our way of telling the story.
This is our way. Let me tell.
Yeah. So
my
when you. Yeah, when you hit them with the books are safe on the shelf, guys, it's like, oh, okay. Like, you know.
That's so funny, because in 2019 she said, "This will be book accurate, don't you worry." So
I've planned
it's,
7
it's
seasons,
all
I promise.
PR.
Yes.
It's all PR talk. But so I don't think it was necessary. I think it was actually a clever idea. But the idea is different than the execution. And I really, of course, me as Nimue, I really dislike what they did with her. And yes, she is a minor character. Well, literally minor character because she's a kid. But she is like 6 or 7 when the storyteller comes to her village. And I'm only going to call him storyteller because he has a different name in the English translation than he has in the Polish. And it's not even like a translation of his name because his name is Pogwids. So I'm just going to call him the storyteller, the old man who comes to Nimue's village of Verva and tells her stories. Nimue was one of many children being told the story. And I hate how the Netflix series opens with like her and the book. And I complained about this on stream immediately when I first saw it. But the whole thing is that it's an oral tradition, and Nimue is an illiterate peasant girl who had no chance in hell of ever learning to read if it hadn't been for this storyteller who came to her village and told her this magical story, which transported her into another world. And suddenly she saw a world and a vision where her, her life could be different than just bearing children and doing housework. She saw another vision of what she could do. Not literally. She didn't have the literal vision of, oh, I think I see the Lady of the Lake, and I think that's me. Like, so literal, so obvious. It's just
I struggled with that when I was like, what?
So
like
cheesy.
It's like a child's fantasy or something. Like, which it literally is, but then it becomes real in a way. You know?
It's like it's just making it into this like cheesy thing where in the books it's so authentic and real, and like I feel like everyone who was maybe read to as a child or was a great reader in their childhood as a kid, like you have you just are getting used to how life is as a kid, right? Because you're bored and everything is like, what is this, right? But then you get into like fairy tales and stories, and you're like, wow, this is like another world, and I can see it in my mind, and it inspires you. And so Nimue's love of the legend is what leads her to Ciri, is what leads her to completing the cycle, the Ouroboros, right? Which is more in Lady of the Lake, which you'll get to. But so everything with that should be like very although Nimue is like a precocious young girl, and so she's sort of like kind of relate to this myself, like the student in class who's like raising their hand and being like, I know, can you do this story now? She should be like that, but she should be in community with other kids, because in Baptism of Fire Chapter 7, when she's introduced, she's with all the other kids, and so she's not just like the one child coming to the storyteller. Exactly. Also, this really bothered me. He's like, what do you need me for? And she's like, to listen. Like, so disrespectful to your random elder.
They need,
whatever.
It's like they knee-jerked like a Hermione Granger type is what you would say when looking at
and it just comes off as cringy and like unnecessary. And I just like, I guess I kind of want to talk about like the characterization and creating believable relationships maybe later if we have time for it, because I know you also have your bullet points. But I feel like that's such a weakness of this show, is that none of the relationships are believable. The dialogue is like sort of the sassy back and forth that you might find in like a superhero movie, but it doesn't work for The Witcher. It doesn't feel grounded at all. You have to like suspend your disbelief because no one talks like this. No one interacts like this.
The rats, like their power is it's anachronism. Like one of them calls shotgun at one point.
That's kind of funny, but it's out of place.
Which blew me away. It's like shotguns do not exist in this world, but here you are yelling it out. Or when they say guys or something, the rats felt like they were out of... the rats are the rats. It's a fascinating show, that one. I guess getting it back to it is that technically neither Geralts are book accurate in both a way they act, but also the way they look. Like, I mean, the way they've made poor Liam look. I understand there's maybe been some trouble. Like, Henry couldn't move that well in the armor, so all the cool sword fights had to happen with him, like, just in the shirt and trousers. So in this, they've put him in a jacket, which I understand. The outfit he is going to wear is the outfit he has to wear now for conceivably the rest of the show, and he's going to be inside, outside. It has to be an outfit that can adapt for for scenes that are inside, scenes that are outside. But to make it this, like, my wife, when she came in, she saw, like, she went, the fuckboy ribbed jeans, really?
Yeah.
Like the pattern, the jacket. She was horrified.
This was so funny
at the look,
to see because, well, first of all, from a costume design perspective, costumes, if you're doing like a grounded fantasy show or just, a fantasy show that you want to make believable, right? They should look like they are pieces of clothing that people would wear in their daily lives. And what we need in functional jackets, we need the jacket to close, right? Because we need warmth and protection, right? His jacket doesn't have any buttons or buckles on it. It's just straight pieces of fabric. So it's like a cardigan, or rather like a like when you wear a dress, there's like a little thing that a shrug. It's like a little leather shrug. It's not even a jacket. So that's my first. It's like from a visual standpoint, from a costume standpoint, it's totally unbelievable that anyone would ever wear this because it's not a functional garment. Okay. The second thing is really funny because they finally acknowledged, more or less. Well, I did this in season 3 as well with like one of the outfits that Henry Cavill had, but they finally acknowledged that Geralt wears a leather jacket and not armor. Okay, great. Yes. In Baptism of Fire, he's not wearing that. Because when he was at Tanid, right, he was probably wearing, like, his freaking pajamas, or, whatever he wore when he and Yennefer, had sex with him.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
he
nothing.
Steps out for the loo and stumbles across.
Yeah, he steps out to, do whatever. So
because what was their plan? Because their plan was they were just intending to go to Geralt in the morning and go, here's what we did. Because he just stumbles into the plot by accident. Yeah,
he was not involved. Him and Yennefer were not consulted on any of this. Yennefer gets transformed into a jade figurine, although we only find out that later. But yeah,
yes,
so it's
course.
like on Tanid, right? He doesn't know what's going on, and so his outfit during that scene is just like pajamas or, casual wear or whatever. I mean, maybe we can imagine, Sapkowski didn't write everything, so maybe we can imagine that he goes back for like his boots or something, if he needs to go fight Vilgefortz later on. Let's just imagine him wearing something a bit more practical than just his underwear, right? So that's what he wears then. Then he gets his ass totally kicked by Vilgefortz and is transported by Triss, and also, Tissaia helps with the portal, because I guess, hey, we're talking about portals, right? Triss needs Tissaia's help to make a portal, goes to Brokilon, and then he's in the water, healing for a month. And we can assume that, medically, the Dryads would need to give him, cut off his clothes, because that's what's done, if you go to the emergency room and you're that beaten up, they just take off your clothes and give you new ones. So the Dryads gave him new clothes, and these clothes are elven clothes. They're not human clothes, because Brokilon is anti-human. They don't have that. Yes. So he's wearing, this elven patterned doublet, and, it's very anachronistic for the time, probably also because Brokilon doesn't have that much in terms of garments for men, because they don't have men in Brokilon, so they have neither humans nor men.
I know that's a fair point, actually, right? But then also because this is a fantasy world, and he has as he's talked about, he has World War II type army tactics existing here. It's some things you just accept that it's a fantasy world.
There
There's
are
going
some
to be
anachronisms,
things like that,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, because he's not going, hey, this is 1500s Poland with monsters. He's going, this is a separate universe. So it's completely acceptable. But yeah, in this, the idea that I guess Triss also teleported Geralt's chest of clothes with him too, I guess.
It's just so funny as well. It's just because also this. I bring this up also because it's plot relevant, because later in Chapter 2, when he and Dandelion are just leaving Brokilon, they're stopped by the hawkers. I guess it's Havocars, I guess. But these are the guys that sell stuff to the Scoia'tael, and they mistake Geralt and Dandelion for elves. And they're just like, hey, Master Elves, come over here. We got some stuff for you. And Geralt's like, shit. Dandelion, keep your head down. And so he, gets his long hair and is like, and just don't ask me to speak any Elder speech, because, Geralt is actually okay in Elder speech. He struggles with the Brokilonian dialect, so he can do classical Elder speech. But, if he talks and shows his face, obviously he's not an elf. But so it's the whole, and also when we talk about costume design, what I think is that it doesn't need to be like accurate reproduction of historical piece because it's not a historical production. It's a fantasy production. We are taking some things here and there from history, and it should look realistic. It should look lived in. It should look practical. And I should be able to understand that these are clothes that people are wearing and not just avant-garde, high fashion costumes that they put on for a night out during Halloween from Party City. But yeah, so I can, suspend my disbelief a little bit. But there's like a symbolism, I think, in Geralt being so piecemeal. The whole company being so piecemeal in Baptism of Fire, because he's not in the regular world anymore. As you mentioned, like Blood of Elves and Time of Contempt are kind of their own thing, and then we move into Act 2 with Baptism of Fire, and suddenly our hero is now in the other world. He is completely separated from the regular world, from Yennefer and Ciri, and from all that he knew before, and suddenly this whole world is something that he doesn't know. It's military tactics. It's literally a fantasy character from a fantasy world being transported into freaking, 1939 Poland. Like, oh my god, it's September 1939. What am I doing here, right? So he's a fish out of water.
And then he gives him a fellowship. Like, he gives him the Lord of the Rings type, setup. Here's your cast of characters on the adventure. So he's purposely doing that, Sapkowski is. That he's going, okay, this guy is now being positioned as the hero, where he's like, I don't want to be the hero.
100%.
In that sense, I just want to go get my daughter. I'm not Aragorn. But,
exactly.
But with both their characterization, I think they're both just similar in both that they're both wrong, but they're both. But Liam is just simply continuing what I'm sure there's maybe some stuff that people will pick on the nuances. I personally don't like Liam's Prince Charming accent. Henry played the games, listened to Peter Kenny, and then just felt that Geralt needed that gruff.
I'm the Witcher. I'm Batman.
Yeah, Exactly. Where for Henry, he felt like Christian Bale did with The Dark Knight. He felt that this guy had to speak like this for it to feel real for him. But so with Liam just doing a much more, as someone who is English, I just hear like a somewhat posh English accent there. I know he's Aussie, but I wasn't crazy about his accent simply because it wasn't even consistent with what we've established. So for me, just in terms of that. But I just felt he's quieter, even quieter this time, I felt. And then this is when Geralt is his most, having to deal with all of his shit. He's talking quite a lot in Baptism of Fire. He's going through quite a bit. And so it seems Liam was really relying a lot on the, I felt Liam was a lot. He almost does more than Henry ever was.
Felt way too calm for Geralt, and which is something that I talked about in my most recent video, which was really just an emotional rant, honestly. But,
no, I thought that was a brilliant video.
Oh, thank you. But I guess I've been trying to get into more commentary stuff, not just the scripted. It's kind of more fun, to just deliver.
You mean your recent one wasn't scripted?
No.
Wow. Well,
there's a lot
enough.
of pauses. There's literally 5 seconds of pause. I'm and the thing is, that Geralt.
But there's a thing where I noticed where your eyes are closed. They haven't went and remembered all the books, have they? Because there's bits where you close your eyes and you're just speaking quotes.
Yes.
There's no way.
For Regis's line about what was it? People. Everyone thinks they understand. Even I thought I understood, but I was merely applying theory to practice. Am I boring you? I won't be much longer. Blah blah blah. The peasants cut my head off. So on and so on.
Yeah.
But no, there are some parts I've closed my eyes because it was easier for me to remember about despair and guilt.
It was incredibly impressive. So
well, thank you. Thank you. Luckily, I have a lot of emotions about The Witcher, so I can talk about it forever.
Because my knee-jerk is, if I had a time machine and someone said, get the ideal Geralt, it honestly probably would be Viggo Mortensen, Lord of the Rings era. I really think he probably has a good, true Geralt in him. At least I think, but that's just my knee-jerk. But I think Liam was the most, I'm going to do what the script tells me. And I don't know what the drama is.
Had the same instinct of this, because they're fine actors. I mean, of course, I have little nitpicks about like appearance, like with Dandelion being blonde, but maybe give Joy Beatty a wig. But like also, I just feel like no one really understands their characters as they are in the book. So if we can like, this is like sounds so bad, maybe offensive, Jim. Like let's do a re-education camp with all the actors. And just feed them books propaganda.
It's a fair... I mean, when you hear about Christopher Lee being on set, like, he met Tolkien, and Tolkien said, oh, you have my permission to be Gandalf. And, like, the first thing he says to Ian McKellen was, like, Tolkien said I could have been Gandalf. So, like, stuff like... But he was there knowing what the books were. And they all said that they were on set. The books were always at hand, that everybody understood the books and were thinking about the books when they were adapting it. Where with this, I understand
said that.
It's a lot of,
I don't know if they did that.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, in Lord of the Rings, yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's good PR. But with this, yeah, it just feels like everyone. I mean, I don't know with the Henry drama and like that one screen, the one guy in the writers' room who did the X-Men series, who ended up being a bit of an arse himself. But he was saying, oh yeah, like they're all just like, how can we make The Witcher better? Like he was saying all the things to aggravate fans who just needed ammunition. But I don't know how much of it is true. Like Henry was simply not saying lines because he felt Geralt wouldn't say that. I don't know if that's true or not. But in this, I just feel like, yeah, you're not really getting anyone, except we were theorising that Chateau Coplay's Bonholt maybe brought a bit more to it, or maybe they just went, Chateau would be a really good choice for this, so they just went, just go do you, and just allowed him to go play with the character.
Yeah, actually, I didn't have a problem with Bonhart, which is so funny because now, for one Witcher adaptation, I can say my favorite character is Leo Bonhart.
Well, I've been seeing video essays of people talking about him in the Netflix show, saying how he's like the most compelling, has simply having a character who is just evil.
So funny. Exactly, because it's so funny because Netflix got every single character wrong except the character who is not complex at all, who is a complete sadist and murderer for hire, who loves killing, who it's like, I love my job, not even whores can say that. Direct quote from Leo Bonhart. Yes. So it's funny because it's like, that's the character that they understand. That's the character that they're sharing their brainwave links with.
It really is interesting because I know you haven't watched House of the Dragon. In House of the Dragon Season 2, there was like a direct, it felt either a course correction or a choice to make, I'm not sure, you don't know anything of the Song of Ice and Fire world or how the law book was delivered to us? No. Do you know? Oh, well, like George Martin wrote the law book from the perspective of historians in the world, so they're dealing with different sources, and they're because he was saying how there's a building in New York that was knocked down in the 50s. Some people said it had 20 floors, other people said it had 30 floors, and he was like, it's crazy how something so recent, we don't know the exact, so what were they doing 500 years ago? We don't know. So he's like playing on, so we don't exactly know what these people, it's not like the Silmarillion, which is like just the Bible for the Lord of the Rings universe. It's like we're filling in the gaps. So we were going, a wonderful idea for adaptation because they can pick and choose the bits they want because George will go, it could have been one of these 5 things that happened in the room that day. We don't know. But what seems to be consistent is that the 2 women at the point, like, are they're very much the driving force of the war in some ways, particularly Alicent Hightower, who was like a plotter for decades. In Season 2, they make her just like a nice woman and who just has got a bit kicked up in this whole world. And even in interviews, they were like saying, we want it to be like these 2 women are just trying to hold the house together while all the men are being... So they overthink these female characters and make them really stagnant and boring because they're not making any choices except just being upset that the war's happening. But then they allow like Aegon, who's like the shit drunk king, to be interesting because they don't care. So yeah, go ahead and be shit. So he becomes interesting to the audience. So it reminded me a lot of that, where I thought the section when I was watching it, it's like you were just saying what I thought when they cut to, like, the lodge in this is just sisters are doing it for themselves. Like, it's just, we're all in this together, where in the book it's like, it's it's the Bene Gesserits of June. It's like we've manipulated the bloodlines. We're working the politics. We're trying to make it work for us. And Yennefer's just like, no, I'm out of here. I'm going to go get my daughter. Like,
Yennefer is like oysters. See ya.
Yeah, exactly, which is brilliant. But so with this, when it's when you get to Leo Bonholt, it's like they just allowed him, as we've said, they've just allowed him to be him. So it's fascinating that whenever he was on, and sometimes in this show, maybe you need a little bit of scene chewing because everyone is a little bit flat in this. So having someone coming in and being like clearly just having fun, and I say that they even like brought his characterization into how he fights. I felt that this very aggressive but very relaxed, like the way the choreography, I thought it just stood out to me. I mean, obviously, I don't know what they thought we would react to, but watching the rats die was so satisfying.
Yes.
Both as a book fan, because they are the worst people in the books.
They are the worst in the books. And they're the worst in the show, but for different reasons. For different reasons.
Because you want us to like them. So then you're like...
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I guess it's surprising in the sense that you think this plucky team might pull it off, but they full on... It's like they almost knew we would hate them because in that scene, it almost revels in the fact that these characters are getting brutalized. Like the putting of the bomb in the stomach seems like such a thing. Was,
total Netflix
it's so
invention.
gruesomely
and
satisfying.
And I mean, Netflix hasn't shied away from this kind of gruesome. I mean,
which exists.
Phil Evandrel gets goddamn exploded in season 3.
Yeah,
which
it's
in
wild,
the books
isn't it?
He had totally. I mean, he has a very touching and poignant moment with Francesca and Dol Blatana.
Because that's the scene that I remember. We cut to her in Dombla, what's the city? The elf
Dol Blatana.
Capital, which has been gifted to her so she can be like the mouthpiece for Nilfgaard going, it's all good, elves. Look how great it is. Yeah.
We disown all the Skoy tile.
We see her there and we go to Faned. And she's a full elf or a part elf in the books?
Francesca is a full-blooded elf.
But she presents herself as like a sorceress, right? She's with the sorceress.
Yeah, she is a sorceress.
Yeah, where in this she's just a fellow fighter in the woods.
Yeah, which is, that. By the way, that is just so strange to me. And one of also the reasons why I feel like Netflix never delivered on its intention of diversity. Because, like, if you think about, like, people groups in real life, just because... like, well, we might think of, like, the elves as, like, I guess, an allegory for race or ethnic group, right? I mean, obviously, it's, whatever. But it's like, Netflix has represented all elves as thinking the same way, as holding the same politics, as interacting with humans the same way. Like, one of the points in Blood of Elves is, like, in Chapter 4 with Yarpen and Ciri, and because they work for Cadwen, instead of working for the Skoy tile. And Ciri's like, well, why don't you work for the Skoy tile? And he's like, well, I don't agree with the politics and I'm older and I know that they're just young shits who have been riled up by people who are, older than, like, who are trying to use them for their own political gain. And so it's like, it's depicting this, like, complexity of, like, well, just because we're the same group doesn't mean we hold the same beliefs. And you see this with the elves. Francesca, the queen of Dol Blatana, does not hold the same same values as Teruviel, who is fighting in the Skoital commandos.
Yes. That's it, because in Baptism of Fire, I mean, I know they added Yarp and Sigrun into the party briefly, right? He's never there in the book. I read the book 3 weeks ago. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's not there.
Yeah, he's not there. He only shows up in Rivia later on.
And then the other dwarves, because from what I remember, they're like, yeah, we're tired of this world. We're going back home, is from what I remember is what it was, is that they are leaving and going back to the mountains where dwarves are.
Yes, I don't know why Zoltan is here, is continuing to be with the company, because also the whole thing is, like, during the stampede in chapter 4, after the trial of the horseshoe gets interrupted, and then Nilfgaard, cavalry from the west, and then every man for himself, and then everyone runs. Then Zoltan's company and Geralt's company get separated from each other, so they don't see Zoltan again until in chapter 7 when they run into him again.
Later.
And this is, like, it bothered me so much because they cut out that they run into the girl from the camp again. And here's the thing, it's like, I guess it's really symbolic to me. Maybe Sapkowski didn't intend it, but it's how I interpret the scene, right? The girl is, she's been burnt by the fire, and her burns have become infected. So well, if you have a blood infection, septicemia, in, I guess not medieval Europe, but like inspired, medievalish inspired world, she doesn't have access to a freaking ER. She doesn't have access to ER emergency room. She has access to ER Emil Regis. So Regis goes and heals her wounds, heals her burns, but he confides in Geralt and he says, fate or curse, to be able to sense the infection in the blood, the entire essence of it, but not be able to cure it. So Regis, as a vampire, can sense, what is wrong with your blood. Or, what's good about your blood. But so he senses that this girl is doomed and she's gonna die, but he helps her anyways because Regis, he wants to alleviate the human suffering. But, this is so metaphorical, right? Because they find the girl, Ciri,
yes.
Metaphors, parallels. And then, but the thing is that she's already doomed, or that they can't save her from what has already occurred, from the fire that has already burnt her. Meanwhile, in the book, Ciri has already been severely traumatized by the Karath Desert, by the Trappers, by Nilfgaard, way back when, and also now, and then also the rats, from Missile, from everything that's gone on in her life.
Because she thinks her mum and dad are dead, right?
Yes,
she thinks they've all blown up in the Faned situation.
They're dead. Yeah. She thinks that she blew everything up with Torlara, or that maybe they survived, but they haven't been able to find her, and maybe they don't love her anymore.
Because Ciri's fascinating, because Dan was mentioning to me how originally they were skewing younger in season 1, and then at somewhat last minute, they got Freya Allen in to be Ciri, potentially.
Yes.
Which is interesting, because I understand child labour laws, hours, and also just the things that you're going to be doing, but I think she's a character that seriously needed to be 16 or 15, however old she is by baptism of fire. Because I get why Andre, I fancy myself a writer myself, but why in the book we just see Ciri descending, because fundamentally that's what's important to her, is that she is just dancing in the fire. She is just enjoying the chaos because it's easier than dealing with all the trauma that's happened.
Yes, dance, Falca, dance.
Exactly. She's actually changed her name. She's full on ignoring the fact that she used to be. And then, as you point out, and as I loved, she kind of is motivated to go and be Ciri when she hears that someone's living that life. She's like, hold on a minute. I should be in the palace.
Wait a minute. The person of Ciri still exists? I can be Ciri?
Yeah.
Let me go be Ciri.
Yeah, exactly. So when we cut to her, it's I glazed over every time as a book fan whenever we went to the rats, because I'm like,
Same.
This doesn't matter. I refuse to care, because I know this isn't important. And as I was saying with Dan, it just feels like the same, Dan was saying to me, this feels like eventually the same plot scene every time. It's just Missile being like, I understand you. Why don't you share some more stuff with me? And it's they just spread that over. I mean, we all knew, I laughed because everyone seemed to knew we were going to do the Robin Hood thing, which is exactly what happens.
All the book fans called it from season 1. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, they were going to make them a plucky group of people.
Yeah.
I think they wanted the Rat series to be like a Guy Ritchie the Gentleman thing. I think that's what they wanted that to be.
It's funny. They want it to be like Six of Crows, but Netflix canceled Six of Crows. So
I brought this up to Dan. Why not just do? I mean, I imagine you've read or watched Six of Crows, because that's primarily.
I've heard about it from friends. I've heard about it from friends. That is
you're the
basically
target
the same thing as the Rats, but
exactly. So why not just do Six of Crows and just be done with it? Just do your plucky Guy Ritchie-esque heist thing over there for the thing you already own. It just made no sense that they. I guess it's a great example of somebody in one room greenlit it, and it got all the way to production before somebody went, "Well, hang on a minute.
Are people even asking for this?" Here's the thing. I guess I don't. The Rats are supposed to be dislikable, so I don't have a problem with them being dislikable as a fan of the books, right? A lot of people in the fandom absolutely loathe them for what they did to Ciri, and I understand that, but I also recognize that they are fictional characters, and their point is to cause trouble for our protagonist, right? And it's repulsive and it's despicable, but it's also they're fictional characters, so I'm not spending my time awake in bed thinking I hate Missile so much. I think it's all tragic,
fundamentally.
Right? It's all tragic. But it's so funny because it's we were talking about when they introduced Bonhart in season 4, and they just let him be music maestro.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it's like, let your characters be unlikable. And this is one bullet point that I had. The one core thing that I wanted to say is that they don't let their characters be unlikable, or even just have a hint of like maybe having done something wrong or like questionable.
So good.
Yennefer has to be perfect supreme leader who all of the lodge just immediately accept. Ciri is already like accepted by the rats. They're not even like manipulating her. They're just like, hey, our homegirl, Folka. Geralt, similarly, is not, pushing people away. He's immediately accepting all of his company. His company are just, they don't even need baptisms of fire because they're already perfect people who didn't really do anything wrong. It's just, there's no moral questions ever asked.
Dan was questioning what on earth a baptism of fire even was when he was watching this. He's like, well, what even does any of this mean? Like, well, what is a baptism of fire? I said, well, in the book, it's like a whole thing. It's like, it's like, instead it just feels like for Dan, it's like they always work in, like they do in the book, they work in the title. So you'll hear Time of Contempt, you'll hear Baptism of Fire. He goes, oh, that's just the book title they've worked in. Right, cool. Yeah. And that's when we move on. So I hope this doesn't come across as rude or anything, but I feel like if Leo Bonholt was called Lauren Bonholt, we probably would get a tragic backstory and a reason why we're like this. That I feel like just because he gets to be a grimy man, even his outfit feels more correct. Like they fully just went, yeah, here he is, outfit and everything. Like it all just feels correct.
I mean, they allowed him to even keep his hard-boiled egg, and well, it wasn't totally perfect, but because he should be biting it and going with the full mouth. Where's Folka? Huh? And it's just sort of like, he doesn't even give a shit that the rats are here to murder him.
How old is he meant to be? Like a knackered 60-year-old, but he can move like he's 25? We don't really know.
We know he fought in the army, in the Nilfgaardian army, and he just really liked killing. But Giselher also fought in the army, and it was more youngish.
Yeah, I felt it was like he was... he's kind of like a personification of death or something. He's
yes,
like that
he is the Grim Reaper. He's called the Grim Reaper. Ciri calls him that.
Yeah, because he's not played the same, but in No Country for Old Men, Anton, that character, if you've watched, very much that. Like, he's just a presence looking for someone, and he's going to get them eventually because he's that efficient and good at his job. So whenever he was on screen, I was the most engaged. Although ultimately, it's like I could have raged about it for 2-3 hours, is this show's utter fascination with trying to give Yennefer shit to do. It's like they made a promise to themselves in season 1, okay, Yennefer, and she's just as important as Geralt. So we need to give her as much as possible. So when I was reading the books, given her importance in the games and the importance in season 1, I expected the books to be way, to have so much, Yennefer stuff in it. So I was so surprised with In Blood of Elves. She's just there in the last chapter. Like, she comes in and teaches Ciri, and it's very important stuff. But with this, because they've wanted to give her, in season 2, she's planning on betraying Ciri or killing Ciri. And then in season 3, it's like, you're finally a mother. It's like, well, like
with Anya Chilatra and Freya Allen, we are maybe 5 years age difference. Hello, mommy.
And they even make Tissaya's killing herself about Yennefer. Like, they can't.
God. Yes. It's just painfully Yennefer-centric. And also, I will bring this up, not as a diss, but Lauren Histrick did say that Yennefer is her favorite character, and she sees herself in Yennefer. And she had, a phase when she was younger where she dressed all in black. So, I mean, I call myself Nimue, so I cannot talk about, self-insert, whatever. But...
My book has a guy who wears cardigans and drinks biscuits and has tea, so it's completely fine.
We all put, a little bit of ourselves into our characters that we love,
can't
right?
help
or we
it.
See ourselves in the characters we love. But
exactly,
it's an obsession with them. It's really unfortunate as well because Yennefer in the books, she is an absolute powerhouse in every scene that she's in. And I think that the most interesting thing about Yennefer is that she's enigmatic and you don't really understand her until you get really to, Blood of Elves chapter 7, I think, is the first time in which you really, really see Yennefer.
Because what did she call the ugly one again? Is that a cultural thing that works in Polish? It's one of those things?
Yeah, it's, oh my gosh, Brzydulka, which is because Polish has diminutives. So for example, with little horse or horsey, it's little horse officially, but it's kon is koni is the Polish word for horse. So then koniku is what Ciri calls the unicorn. So it's like little horse, but because it's like you put like a
Yeah,
ka,
you're
right?
right.
So make it like small and cute.
Yeah.
So she calls her like ugly one cutie. Like like I've heard a translation of it of like ugly duckling, because it kind of, a duckling is cute, and also like there's a story behind it. But it's it's kind of like what a like an old fashioned grandma would call a kid. Like, oh, come on, little one.
Speaking briefly on translation, I think I'm a Danusia stock apologist, because I was perfectly happy with her translations. And I guess I don't really think too much of a difference with the David French. I know they announced that David French is retranslating the books he didn't translate initially.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah,
Ooh.
when they announced Crossroad of Ravens, they said that next year you'll also get the David French Blood of Elves and David French what short
Last
stories
Wish.
collection, The Last Wish. He didn't do The Last Wish. Apparently, yes, like that was, because I even went to Reddit and everyone was very shitty when I asked, "Where's confirmation of this?" They went, "Here's your fucking confirmation." It was in the announcement of the book. I was like, okay, I just wanted to check, because it seems weird they do that.
Asking for sources is always good. Always
Yeah,
good.
because I'm here with my beautiful hardbacks. I'm like, well, I've got these beautiful hardbacks now, but I guess they have to reprint them with the French version. And I know you have your, as you've said, that you felt like the David French approached it initially as, oh, it's a fantasy thing. Lord of the Rings is fantasy. I need to put more words in this, because maybe the Western audience expects more prose style. And I was surprised reading The Witcher just how stripped down it really is. Like, he doesn't have many dialogue tags.
Yes.
He doesn't rely on adverbs or anything. He just full on trusts that you pick up the tone. And it's really interesting as someone who's like, you know, when you read Tolkien, and he will really go into it sometimes. When you come to The Witcher, I guess that's just, as you spoke, it's the Polish style of writing, right? It
is also like cultural as well. Well, also because, like, I mean, if you think about English, we have the articles, right? Like the and a or a.
Yes.
Right? So you have to say like a Witcher or the Witcher. It's just Vijmin.
Yes.
Right? Oh yeah, also like with Vijmin, like the title, like I think that like even with the translation of the title, I mean, Witcher is already, you know, a creative, because the thing is that it's a gendered thing. So Vijma is a witch, right? There's no such thing as a Vijmin, like a witch man. So and then it's like, I think the logic behind it for Witcher was that, like, if you have a widow, you have a widower, so a man who has been widowed. So it's trying to masculinize the thing. But in English, we can have male witches. I mean, witch is usually feminine, but whatever. So it's just like the joke doesn't come through just because of how the language is constructed. So when we talk about like The Witcher being like, oh, intellectual, or oh, postmodern, or, you know, Sapkowski is trying to do a thing of like subverting fantasy, the very title or very original concept of Vijmin is like already subversive, but it doesn't come through as well in English because you're like a witcher. He's witcher, which est.
Well, that's what Joseph Anderson is, a video game YouTuber who does video essays. He did Witcher 1, the video game, Witcher 2, and then it's been years, but he's slowly finally releasing the Witcher 3 video essays.
Yeah.
And he's
like, what is a Witcher? Yeah, that was in the introduction.
Yeah, his opening gambit is it's a great success of the Witcher series that we've accepted that this is a really weird word. Like, it's the Witcher, like, you can be the witchy-ist, you can be a witch, but as you said, he brings up the widower Witcher thing, like, and it's true. Like, I've accepted that the Witcher is a word, but then I ignore the fact that it is actually an odd word. Like, I mean, it translates more correctly to Hexer. Is that why it's called Hexer?
Well, Hexer really was the original. Was it Agnieszka Fulinska? Was the translator for like the 2000 translation for the Zeidel Award, which was it was like a whole thing with like the Polish fandom, bringing some stories into English, but also the Hexer, like I still have it over here, the DVD, or, you know, the movie adaptation. It was in German Hexer, and then that got moved over to English.
Of course.
So it's like in neither one. I think that like Witcher is fine because we don't have a Hex S, I guess, or, you know, the female version of it, which is more generally accepted. Hexer feels too separated from the witch concept. I think it's interesting because, like, Geralt is a witcher, Yennefer is a witch. Well, she's a sorceress, but people call her a witch if they're mean derogatory, right?
Yeah, in my own world, I've taken from my favourite book is Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Noel. Everyone is just a magician in my world. Magician is a gender-neutral term for me. Like, it's also just a cool word, I think. I love the word magician.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yes, I guess, I mean, I honestly could waffle here for hours, but I am really curious because creatively, I mean, I was amazed that, because when we were discussing the rats, me and Dan, we were going, I guess what they initially were going to do was, because I thought the Rat show was actually a series spin-off, that we were going to get 8 episodes.
It was supposed to be.
Of what Siri was up to with these guys.
Oh.
So then I
it was totally just them alone, not with Siri.
Yeah, which made it weirder, because I assumed when I was watching the series that all this rat stuff was what that series was, but they've just chopped it down and added in bits. But then when they show us that thing that Dolph Lundgren said on Instagram, after 2.5 years, the Rats is finally out. So from what I understand from that production is they were filming a bit in South Africa. Somebody came along from Netflix and said, what the fuck is this? And closed it down. So they got about 1 or 2 episodes in, maybe. And I don't think they've went back. I don't think they've reshot it or tried to shape it differently. And it's interesting for me because we live in a world where there's a Batgirl movie that's just sitting on the shelf somewhere. That Warner Brothers made. Brandon Fraser's the villain in it, but we're not going to do it. We're going to do it as a tax return thing. So it's weird that Netflix looked at this, sat it on the shelf for 2.5 years, and didn't just go, you know what, let's just scrap it and get the money back as as a business misadventure. Instead, they just release it quietly with the show. Like they didn't do a trailer for it. Yeah, they don't promote it at all. So when I was watching it, I'm watching it as like I felt like I shouldn't have been watching it. I don't know about you, but I was like, I feel like I'm watching like I should be seeing the Premiere Pro like editing tab at the bottom. Like I feel like I've snuck in or something. And so it's, to me, it's hard to talk about because it's fundamentally nothing. It's just an 80-minute nothing. That film, the Rats film, it's the only thing that I find that's interesting about it is that I've never seen a film introduce its characters as pickled heads in a jar. Like so I thought that was a really interesting choice. I know that was added in as just a way to try and like give it some sort of shape as to why we would be watching this.
Right.
That it's post Bonholt capturing Siri. I have to imagine that that's the stuff that was added in. Was the Bonholt series stuff.
Oh, yeah, I guess. I didn't even think about how strange that is to introduce them. It's kind of like what they did in season 1 with, like, Sintra is burning. Hey, guys, we're back in Sintra. Okay, enjoy.
Oh, so
it's like, well, they all died anyways.
And no one's aging. Like, I mean, it's always, I mean, that's something where, I mean, the whole, everyone's favourite line, you're 40, you look 30, you act 20, whatever that is. But then in the show, it's like he seems like he's 28 the whole time, even though it's been 30 years. It's very confusing. But with the Rats, it just felt like somebody somewhere read the books. They saw that Siri was kissing a girl and said, "Oh, awesome!" It's and decided to run from that
without considering any of the context.
I come to you as a book fan with asking this question, so I hope it's not rude, but. Is Siri, would you say, she's not
in
like
love with Missile? Is that what you're about to ask?
Gay or bi or any? Yeah, is she gay, bi? It's not. Or is it just simply Missile? It's never explicitly stated, right?
It's never explicitly stated. No, and this is also a big topic of fandom contention, right? We get a lot of...
Yeah, it doesn't bother me either way. It's just her interactions with Missile are... It's an adult woman, 19, 20 years old.
She's probably... she was 17 when the rebellion happened, so she's probably like 18, 19, 20...
And Siri's 15, 16...
Siri is 14, 15, yeah.
Because I remember reading it, also because I think these books are dreadful as audiobooks because they're Peter Kenny's so fast as a speaker and there's so much in every line of dialogue. I feel like if I just phase out for 20 seconds, I'm completely lost. So I always have to go back over and read scenes because I just want to take it all in again. But if I remember correctly, Siri's like stop coming on to me, but eventually gives in anyway to Missile or something? It's like, or am I misremembering exactly what their relationship is?
Yeah, so it's difficult, challenging topic to talk about. But like, so
we don't have to talk about it. I'm sorry.
Oh no, not for me. Just in like, whatever I say is gonna piss somebody off. That's what's challenging about it.
Sorry.
I mean, like it's because also I don't where this is going, but it might be censored. But it's a sensitive topic, right? But so in Time of Contempt, Chapter 7, Ciri is has joined the rats, but the rats gave her a bunch of gifts, and now she's sleeping around them. And then Kaylee comes up, and Kaylee was the rat in which she was, because Netflix didn't do this part, but they were both taken as captives by the trappers who are slavers.
Yes.
And so they were like tied together, and Kaylee's like, get a knife and we'll out like, and then Ciri's like, I don't want to help you, but then she ends up helping them, and she ends up making her first kill, her first murder, I guess. And then, so Ciri's lying there, and then Kaylee approaches her and attempts to rape her, and then Missile is like, hey, fuck off. And we as the readers are like, oh, woo, girls.
Yes.
She came and saved Ciri.
I remember that.
And then Missile, I guess proverbially, like, continues the job and rapes Ciri. Digital penetration is rape. So Ciri is just sort of lying comatose there and not... It's the description is that like Missile's hand was very decisive and like a little snail. It just sort of gross. Anyways, but yeah, so that's how the relationship begins.
And then, because I have to imagine Sapkowski was playing off we all think it's going to be a merry band of men, like a Robin Hood type situation. Mm-hmm. But it's actually fucked up people somewhat capitalizing on the war. Like that the war has completely destabilized everything. Yeah. They aren't hanging out in like Aladdin's Persia or whatever it is. Like they're actually in like shitty villages bouncing around the place.
Yes,
is what I
exactly.
Took,
yeah,
like,
they're not really robbing from the rich. They're just robbing from, they rob a baroness, but they rob just anyone they can really highwayman. Also, sorry, I laughed when you were talking because in the Rats movie, there's this line like really early on, and one of them says like, "It's war. It's really hard to rob people." Like, they just start saying like, it's like, no, it's actually really that's why you're here. It's because it's easier because it's war. But
and have. So I laughed in the show where it's in both the show where it's like they have almost like a knighting ceremony, like you're now a rat. Like they all line up and give her a little. Obviously,
but of course everything happened differently in the books because it's in
more
the books,
romantic in the show.
Yeah, in the show it's like woohoo, yay, we're a merry band of bandits, but in the books it's quite. I mean, people are gonna say, oh, it's weird you like that scene. I love it because it's tragic and it's like haunting in a horrible way, in like a nauseating way, because they are like. I'll actually talk about this scene in comparison to the fish soup scene, which Netflix did a number on. But like, so in the fish soup scene, they got nothing.
We didn't talk about that.
They got some small fish, some small tiddlers. They got some basil, bay leaf, pimiento, sage. They've got a 3-pound pike. They've got carrots, leeks, onions, celery. And they've got a cauldron of water. And I think they also have salt. And then they make a soup.
Yes.
But it's like, we have nothing. Let's freaking bond together. And also Geralt's, being like self-isolating and he doesn't want to help. But then he, peels the vegetables. And everyone is just sort of like, oh, what's wrong with him? Oh, Geralt, And then he's like, shut up, vampire. And everyone is laughing at him. And, it's sort of like they are having this interaction that feels very... realistic. I would say like they're all annoyed and tired because they just escaped from Armeria, so none of them have slept the night, and it's like noon. The sun is out. They had the whole Regis sword thing at like daybreak, so they've all been awake and they're all tired and they're all hungry and they're starving. So they're all kind of snap at each other and but, they're demonstrating their characters, right? So Regis is saying some philosophical bullshit about, like, compass directions. And Milva is like, Ciri's our goal. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was joking without much tact. Forgive me. So everyone is just sort of, doing their thing. And they have nothing. But they're trying to, they're trying to help each other, right? The rats are, like, the opposite. When they give Ciri the gifts, they have... nice things, and they give Ciri nice things, but what they're not giving her is
Is
like,
love and affection.
yes, they give her like
Actual care.
allyship. I mean, Ciri in Tower of the Swallow says that she has friendship and love, but Ciri is also a biased source because she was manipulated and like abused, literally raped by these people.
Yes.
So like her calling it friendship is like, I don't trust you, Ciri. You are, as Visagoda says, you are a damaged young child.
I saw someone compare the rat stuff to the god-awful We Don't Talk About It episode in Stranger Things where Eleven goes and meets up with her punk siblings, if you've watched Stranger Things, sorry.
I haven't.
Oh, no, there's like this horrible episode with that never returns where it's just our main character puts on the black eyeliner, wears the black coat, and hangs out with the rebels for an episode. Oh my
God, that's literally the rats, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone said it's like they did that and did a whole season for it. Like, it's the same nonsense.
Yes, and it's really sad because in the books, like, Ciri is basically destroyed, and she is not... What I really disliked about the Netflix adaptation is that they treat it like it's, like, quirky to be evil. And Ciri is like, yes. I'm insane, I'm crazy now. And Missile, it's so funny. Missile is like being her therapist. Missile!
Yeah.
And Missile is like, are you okay? Like, you seem, like, unadjusted. Like, let's sit down and talk about our lives. And Ciri's like, I'm too busy killing people because I'm crazy. And it's just like, what is this? It's so insincere.
Oh, yeah, like when she goes, that wasn't like you defending us, that was a butchering. Like,
yeah.
You know, like... It's like, what are you talking about?
Can you imagine the rats from the books being like, okay, cool with the violence now. We don't condone that.
Yeah, it's weird because, I mean, as you've said, it's like clearly who are they watering this down for? Like,
yes,
I mean,
right?
that they clearly read it, and then somebody went, we need to make this better. They didn't like what they read. They didn't like, maybe they overthink it. They don't like that they think of it as like the LGBT representation in this is something ugly. Maybe that's what they think of it as. Is that great? Like, the only time we see it is that. So we're going to have to, make
sanitize
it something a bit more... Yeah, make it nicer. So, but then... they mess up because obviously we still get the same end result, is that everyone's cheering when the rats die. It's just for two different reasons now.
Yeah.
It's either because
we hate
them. Yeah. It's either we hate them because they're cringy, or we hate them because they're actually disgusting human beings.
Yes.
And one of them, and one version is like, it's telling you something. It's like it's a whole point. It's something incredibly important to Ciri's journey that she takes with her. That like I'm already interested as I'm reading the book how she's going to be if she meets back up with Geralt, or when Yennefer gets to see her again, like how she will come across to them now, because she's had this, to put it simply, a major loss of innocence.
Yes.
Where in the show, it's the first time I went, Freya Allen isn't very good at this, because the bits where like she's becoming like a hero and people have got dolls of her, or when she like has to play like she bumps into a man and goes, oh, sorry, sir, or the crowd. I pointedly went, that was really bad. Like, just the way she has to play like this, like, show-off version of herself. And I think it comes down to the fact that this Ciri we don't really have a grasp on. So it's crazy how when I read Ciri in the books, I immediately understand what this character is, and I'm really engaged by her. So when you're here, it's crazy how I don't care. Like, there's sometimes when I was doing both. I was reading the book and watching the show and couldn't believe that I was like... I was second screening,
double,
but it was book. Yeah, so it was weird how I was reading the book incredibly engaged, but then looking up and already not seeing the reasons why I love this world going on. And Ciri, for me, is one of them. Everything's messed up. Yennefer is it's just because they want to give her more stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's why Yennefer's doing that. But with Ciri, it's just it's a fear, I think. They don't want to get into it. They don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that character. So, exactly. Seeing a 20-something-year-old Freya Allen, like, doing a piggyback ride on Henry Cavill's back because they realised that they, in the past 2 seasons, haven't actually done...
They haven't actually developed the core father-daughter
Well, what stuck out to me with your video that made me go, oh, this person knows what they're on about, is when you brought up, and I just took it with our video, that when the opening of Blood of Elves is the nightmare of the sacking of Sintra, and Cahir is taking her, and she wakes up screaming, and Geralt's there being a dad, And then we
Yes.
have that equivalent scene in season 2, and it's like rapey
sorry.
rock trolls. Am I right?
Oh my god! Literally,
and
it's
you're
so
there going,
unfortunate.
and here's where it's wrong. Like I think that's maybe the best example of like, here's what the scene is in the book, and here's we are in the show doing a Marvel quip. I couldn't believe it that she has a bowl of dialogue suggestions or something.
Yes, the famous
Yeah.
Instagram bowl of like
Has
we
she
pick
been?
a line.
I assume she's been. I mean, I know you've criticised her, but I assume that has been heavily criticised amongst any kind of fans. Going like,
yes, and
really,
people
like
thought that
indigestion
maybe she
is
was
something.
trolling, but then it's also like we all like they did also
Wouldn't put
take
it past her.
yeah, but then they like also took pictures of like their whiteboards as writers, because you like sketch everything out.
Yes,
They took
yes.
pictures of it, and it was basically, let's just say everything made sense and was congruent with the fishbowl.
Because this isn't a show that I think it's an interesting book series because it's both incredibly simple, and I think when you look at season 4, they've just done, particularly with the Geralt stuff, it's the surface layer bullet points of what happened to Geralt in Blood of Elves. It's like, yes, technically this stuff did happen, kind of.
In Baptism of Fire, I mean.
In Baptism of Fire. Sorry, I always get the two because there's
The
in my
BB.
head.
Don't worry, me with Time of Contempt and Tower of the Swallow.
Oh, of course. So it's like that. So I'm like, yes, technically this has occurred, but then they are either they aren't equipped or they don't care to be equipped to really bring in. Because yes, it is 20-30, like the discussion with the kings and the queen in the tower. That is a big chapter. That would be a big long scene. I completely understand, but it's crazy that nobody went. Everybody loves the small council scenes in Game of Thrones, so we've basically got one of them here. Let's really try and make something out of this. I think the Radovid stuff in this season was just there to serve Philippa, because the moment Philippa is with the Lodge, we forget Radovid exists. To the point where I think there must have been more with him and Dijkstra, but somebody cut it out because it's so weird that he's there and then he's not there.
And it's so funny because they like built this up in season 3 with him and Jaskier as well. And they were like, we have the representation. And then people on Twitter were like making gift sets and edits. Like they did a gay couple, yay. And then they immediately were like, nope. And they were like, canceled it. And they were like, well, I mean, it was never going to work out. Well, first of all, because Radovid is 13 in the book. So, totally new character, whatever.
Like the choices the actor makes do not suit. I mean, season 3, he's meant to be some political genius, but the whole time he's just this wet-lipped drunk. And I'm waiting to see where the political genius is.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't, when they make an original character, they don't really think it through.
Which is scary.
Well, what you were saying about Geralt's storyline in season 4 is you do get yourself technically saying like, oh, technically this did kind of happen. But what I also found like as like Baptism of Fire aficionado was that like they smushed so many scenes together and they cut so many scenes. So like even though the stuff that they pulled does more or less like happen in the books, like they go and they find Regis and Fenkar and then they drink Mandrake at his cottage.
Yes.
And he doesn't freaking roofie them to get them to spill secrets. He just gives them alcohol because he's a chill dude. He doesn't sniff a bandage either.
Don't you mean he's Cool Mansion? I'm
it's
confused.
Cool Mansion, yeah.
Yeah, he's a vampire, right? They live in mansions.
Yeah, exactly. But so like they do that. They go to a refugee camp. They have the trial of the horseshoe. They have fish soup.
That was terrible in episode 3. Sorry,
Oh
the pausings in episode 3. Like
I think on stream I started to skip. I was like, I'll watch this rest of this. Like I'll watch the next scene later. But I just want to see what happens with the trial because it's a very simple scene and exchange, and you could have done it in one thing or maybe with one cut. You don't need.
And I have
so
to
many
imagine,
cuts.
Since you're a Regis like super fan, that's a really big scene for Regis. So you're like, just get me to the horseshoe moment. I want to know how badly you fucked it up.
I was literally also wondering like where he was because like I mean I guess this is more of like a film thing, but like blocking, right? Like where you have your actors standing.
The blocking is god awful in this show.
Oh yeah, it is. But like in the book, like they're all kind of standing together, like Geralt's company, right? And Dandelion and Regis are having some asides, and Regis says like, this priest, he's like got his mind in the gutter basically, and he probably dreams of like a vagina dentata, like tooth vagina, right? And then Dandelion goes. They hear some more dialogue, and Dandelion goes to Regis and goes, "Aha, you're wrong, Regis. This is about politics, not vaginas." So there's a little bit of banter going on. Witty banter, not Marvel quip banter, witty banter. All of Geralt's company, they're kind of like thinking about how to approach the scene together, right? And it's like kind of interesting because they're not a company yet. It's just sort
they're
of
not a Hansa yet. Yes.
Yeah, Milva and Jaskier have like decided to follow Geralt, and then you also have Zoltan's company on the side with Percival, Munro, Yarzin, blah blah blah. Figgis, Caleb. Okay, made them all. So then they have these guys inside, but like everyone is sort of standing together, and they're standing together kind of as a company, not really yet. So when Regis goes to get the horseshoe, he doesn't just do it like, I mean, he does go alone, but before then, Geralt, Milva, and Zoltan have all sort of like huddled together, and they're like, okay, what are we going to do? Because this guy just said we have to pull a horseshoe from the fire. How are we going to do that? And then Zoltan goes and like was like, I worked in the forges in Mahakam. Like, there's only a few steps. I can manage it. And Regis puts a hand on his shoulder and goes, please withhold your prayers. Because, he says, please withhold your prayers because earlier on, Geralt is like, do you believe in the gods? When the priest is like, you got to do a horseshoe because gods. And then he's like, do you guys think that there are gods?
I was so annoyed that they missed because obviously I have my own opinions on like world building, but obviously Witcher, he isn't doing world building in the way someone who's read Tolkien or Wheel of Time is, where it's like, here's a page of me explaining to you how the Aes Sedai work. He's purposely quite limited with it.
Oh,
but
yes.
You get this great line from the priest where he's like, these witches who took away religion. Like, so the idea that this world once had, like in our own medieval society, that religion was the popular form, like it was them talking to the kings. But then when the sorcerers came in, we got rid of religion. Or like we've stopped thinking about religion as much as we're now distressing about sorcerers and how magic works. I thought, God, that's so interesting that he's thrown that in. Like, it made me, it's the great thing about world building. It makes the world feel more real. It immerses you more in the story. So it's weird that they went to the effort to give the priest all that stuff, but then they cut out what I thought was the most interesting little juicy bit of it. Particularly when you think about the Lodge, how, like, he in some ways is kind of right. They are kind of slowly manipulating the world.
Right,
like,
and we just had a Lodge.
That,
I mean, Chapter 1 has the Lodge of Sorceresses, so it is sort of like an inter-chapter reference back, right?
Exactly. So it's all this stuff that, I mean, obviously, Sapkowski thought about this a lot. Like, so it will always, it'll just blow me away that they do that. But then they make the two idiots feel kind of correct. Like the two idiots who want Milva's black horse.
Oh, yeah. His name is, there's one is named, his name is Cloggy. Or Clogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Felt like they just did the Pirates of the Caribbean stick with the guy with the wooden eye and his little friend. They just went, oh, it's just two idiots. Okay, we'll just do that then.
Yeah.
And it's weird that they, like, they do that fine.
Yeah, it's funny. It's why of all of the characters they get the idiots and the sadists correct, and that's all they get correct.
Yes,
might reflect on the
opposite.
opposite.
It's so strange. Because then you get, I was so surprised to see Field Marshal Windbag was there. I was going in, I said to Dan, there's no way the fucking parrot's going to be in it. There's no way.
I know, then they get him, I mean, they don't give him his exact lines because...
He's not on the shoulder, sadly. I wish he was on the shoulder.
I understand that.
The parrot
there is also
like
some limitations. I remember Lauren said on Twitter that like there is like animal laws and like there's a lot of scenes with like fog and stuff. And birds have very sensitive respiratory systems. I have a canary myself.
Oh, cool.
Nimue lore, but So like when they have the scene with the horseshoe and they keep cutting back and forth, it's just like so painful. And it's like, I was thinking about this when I was thinking about like things to bring up in this conversation, because you on your channel, you and Dan, you talk about like the TV aspect, like, is this a good show? And it's like the pacing of this show. Because we know it's a bad adaptation. It's already going to be a bad adaptation. But like, what I also thought is like, it's like they took the book parts and they wanted to make them as aggravating and as unenjoyable as possible, so then people would say the book parts are shit, get rid of that, do your own thing instead.
But that's it, because Dan has said to me, I don't want to read these fucking books. Like, I know that would horrify you, but it's actively put him off,
right? Of people getting the impression of what these books are about or what they're like, and then it's like, well, they're nothing like this show at all.
Yeah, well, this is what we were pulling our hair out, because I went on a big Wheel of Time binge because I hadn't read, so I read up to where the series was, and a lot of fans there was people who were liking the show, but by season 3, it felt like everyone who wasn't happy with the show had went away. So now the people here for season 3 were people who just wanted to love it or earnestly loved it. So the discussion became a lot more positive. So when we were watching it, we're like, this is still pretty shit. Like, it's just, they've shot it a bit better. They've put it in a letterbox format now. It looks a bit nicer on my telly. But ultimately, it's still the same show with the same problems. So I half expected this for season 4 of The Witcher, that most people, given the way we develop TV now, it takes 2.5 years to get the bloody show out now, that I half expected that anyone who's still here are people who still like the show. So I half anticipate the online discussion will be more positive, because you get, and we always bring him up, like, your critical drinker will come in and do an easy dunk million views for all his, fans. Like, so he'll just go, I didn't even watch season 3, but I've watched one episode of season 4 and it's still shit. And so he's not actually engaging with the show. He's just doing an easy million views. That was it. It's a very small thing. I really don't understand why Yennefer has to wear a wig, because Anya has lovely, wonderful, long black hair anyway. I don't understand why they're like, no, it needs to be longer black hair.
I like how they give her a wig and then don't even do what her hair is like in the books, because it's not just like, her curls are very flat. It's like, in The Last Witch, it's a myriad of curls.
But, like, it's arguably not fundamental to the character what her hair looks like. So it's just wild that you've got a woman who naturally has black hair and you're not letting her just simply have her black hair out. It blows my mind every time I see it. I forgot, because when Dan's asked, why did they go to the bank in Time of Contempt? She goes to the bank.
Oh, to get Ciri's tuition money, and it's really funny because Giancarlo tells Yennefer what the tuition price is, and then Yennefer, who is 94 years old, she goes, "Oh, damn, it's raised. Like the tuition is higher than when I went to school," and she's just like, "That's what it is now."
It's so weird, because we talked about it, where it's like, so you do Yennefer at Hogwarts in season 1, but you don't have Triss be there. Like,
well, Triss is younger than Yennefer.
But fuck it, right? Like, if you're already changing stuff.
Yeah, in Netflix it doesn't really matter, because they had Fringilla Vigo there, and Fringilla Vigo is not even from the Northern Kingdom. Exactly. Why is she there? Exactly. She studied in an entirely different university, because why is Aretuza assigning sorceresses to Nilfgaard?
Exactly. And then I was also blown away, because obviously I'm not nearly as familiar with the book as you are. I think it's like you and Andre when it comes to familiarity with the books. So when it's the bit where, because I've read that scene of the lodge and thought it was really cool, but then when we watch it and some woman comes in on a broomstick looking like she's out of The Wicked Witch.
Oh my God.
And I was going, who the fuck's this in the book? And I felt that the actress wasn't nearly as, they wanted I felt it was a Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep type. Yeah. They wanted this coming in.
Which is cool. I would have liked her if she was an original character and not a mangling and total replacement of a book character. Right.
Exactly. So why not just do that then? Just have a sassy older witch with the broomstick. Because to me, as a Discworld fan, it reminded me at a glance of one of those. Now that I'm blanking on that character, everyone's favorite character that I'm blanking on now, Granny Weatherwax, I believe. And I was like, oh yeah, here she is. But then it's just pointless. Like, isn't there a bit when she's falling, she openly says, "Oh, I'm falling," or something? Like,
she's quirky. She goes, I don't know. Netflix does this stuff where the characters are just they're not very deep, right? It's like watching Barbie dolls, right?
And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is that in our House the Dragon stuff, and they simply can't have women hating each other, and they really have that problem here. They can't have the lodge be a political, everyone's got their own thoughts. It's so interesting in the book where it's like the Nilfgaard, that this is a secret upon the secret, that yes, we're all on different sides, but we just need to worry about what magic is up to. So that's why we're here right now. Yes. And Yennefer, when we cut to Francesca having that terrible sex scene, then she gets turned into the green model. I was there going, that's not I felt probably what you were like. I was like, that's not what it's meant to be. It's reversed because the idea that you make Yennefer go like, we got to rebuild. And it's not even specifically the lodge. It's the show makes it like that all the sorcerer's school has been destroyed in the Faned coup.
Yeah.
So now we're all what remains. So we're going to have to do this. And it just becomes this weird, like, fight with Vilgefortz. Like, it's just, we've got to kill the evil sorcerer over there in his Batcave.
Which is so confusing, because why did the mages join Vilgefortz, and why did the other sorceresses join Yennefer? It's like they never go into these character motivations of like what drives them to actually do the political actions which they're doing, which the books go into heavily. Like, for example, in the scene that you mentioned, like chapter 1 of Baptism of Fire, when the first meeting of the lodge, and this is a very secretive meeting, and especially like Acerva Anahid and, you know, later Fringilla Vigo, they could be, well, all of them could be executed. The Nilfgaardian sorceresses would be double executed because that's just the Empire, right? But also, for example, Francesca Findabar, who literally was a traitor on Tanid. Because she was working with Vilgefortz, because she was working with the Scoia'tael, because elves, freedom, and now she's, you know, distanced herself because she's got Doblatana. But, right, so everyone has, like, their own political agenda that they're bringing to the table that is informed by who they are, which makes it, I mean, for me, it's, like, providing more detail for, like, why they exist as a character. And it's, like, the more detail you give the character, the more real they feel. And it's not just detail like hair color, eye color. It's, like, their whole mental state and their whole motivation for doing something, right? Even the most minor character has a goal that they're working towards, or like why they are here. And in the show, it's just like nothing. It's like Yennefer wants to find Ciri, and the sorceresses want to help Yennefer, but wait, why do they want to help Yennefer? Didn't some of them have rocky relationships with her? Why does Francesca just give it up and is like, okay, here's the story of Lara Doran. I don't really care if you freaking kidnap me. Okay. It's like everyone just agrees.
It's very similar to the later seasons of Game of Thrones. It's where like they know the show is ending, so they just want to speed run to where they need it to be. So with Yennefer now being like the spearhead, because this is it, they're back at the bank when Keira Metz dies, right? They're hanging out at the bank, aren't they? It looks like the bank.
Why?
Yeah, but yeah, I was like, isn't that the bank? But what got me was that it's the weirdest blocked scene in the world, because they're all there going, fuck the witches, why aren't we just climbing this fence? I don't know. But they're just there pushing against
magic
it.
Fence.
The guy goes, I have to hold the fence. I have to open the fence. Hey, Keira Metz, the only time we met you is that you're really good at portals.
Yeah, why don't they all just rush in immediately, because they opened it and it's like, Yennefer, come in here. And then it's just like open. And they all finally rush in, but like only after so much time has passed.
I saw a video of like a corgi dog barking at a bigger dog, but he's barking through the glass, and at one point he re-enters the room, passes the dog to drink water, then comes back out to start aggressively barking through the glass again. And it's just weird, because the only time we see Keira Metz is she does dark dealings with teleporting. So you've got that character there. Why doesn't she just teleport Yennefer in? I don't know.
It's so funny. Because they also added that for the show. So it's like they introduced their own plot hole there of like, why doesn't she teleport?
Exactly. And then she does like a back demons, and they have like a sound effect, but they don't have a visual effect. So I'm not exactly sure what she's attempting to do.
The magic rules in this show are just like whatever bullshit we feel up to today. And like, okay, the magic building, or like, system, if we want to call it a system, is not really a system in Sapkowski's novels. It's not
it's
really
just magic.
Fleshed out. It's magic.
No.
There are nodes that you can pull magic from, that you can feel in the world.
Is
and pull
the
magic
fire
from.
thing real? Because the whole season 2 is that Yennefer touched fire, therefore it's burnt through her magic. But is that in the books, that if you touch fire?
So the thing is that when Yennefer is teaching Ciri in Blood of Elves chapter 7, she teaches her about the different elements, like nodes that you can draw from. So there's the earth, air, fire, water, when then everything changed when the fire. No.
Yes.
But like, so
the
fire.
We do that all the time.
Fire is like the most difficult element to draw from. So Ciri is like a 13-year-old, like a novice who is just starting and hasn't even been to Aretuza yet, but is just being trained by this, maternal figure. Yennefer forbids Ciri from touching fire nodes and like drawing from the fire because it's very dangerous. So only an experienced sorceress or sorcerer can handle the fire. And then, of course, in Time of Contempt chapter 6, Ciri she can only draw from the fire because there's no earth, there's no air, like, whatever, there's no other life around. There's only fire in the Krath Desert.
Because the show in season 1's like, hey, it's the law of conservation. It's take and give. When we want it to be.
It's like
when we want it to
concept.
be, it is that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I wouldn't have been too mad if they kept that and just, like, actually kept it as a system and, like, abided by their own rules, basically, because they changed the rules and then they didn't even follow their own rules.
Particularly when you get to the bit where, I mean, we see Vilgefortz and how he's making the teleportation network be down.
God.
It's people like sacrificing their magic. His
so
eye is slowly fixing because I guess they just got tired of trying to make it work. So they're just slowly fixing his eye. It's a disservice to the world of Harry Potter, but to call them, but they essentially Death Eater it. They make him Voldemort. They make them Death Eaters.
Helping the evil sorcerer guy, which is so funny because, like, in the books, Vilgefortz, I mean, he has Riense, but I don't know if he would have even shared his power with other sorcerers. He didn't really seem to be interested in other sorcerers. He was just like, no, I can do it myself because I'm epic.
And as we've said, that his home. He's a charming guy. He's the most powerful wizard in this world. He's incredibly charming. He's politically Machiavellian, if you will, for a shorthand. So that's why people are enticed by him. Similar to, like, I keep bringing it up, and I'm like, Voldemort is meant to be that. He was this enticing, charismatic figure. Obviously, it's all very similar to old Hitler as well. But then in this, he's just a dark sorcerer because his house is meant to be wonderful. It's meant to be this, and then in this, menacing. It's just a series of caves.
It's also quite menacing. But yeah, so like Vilgefortz in season 1, they got this wrong because Vilgefortz is supposed to be the hero of Sodden. Yennefer got blinded at Sodden and she had to disappear to let her eyes regenerate.
One, I don't think the actor is playing it like it's. I think he's a bit too mustache twirling even when he's not meant to be evil. But I remember him being more interesting. So when we get to him, other than being really cool with the bow staff, like, there's nothing really there
He's
for
nothing.
me with this version
It's
of
like,
the character.
and like Vilgefortz, Vilgefortz is sort of like this megalomaniacal sort of antagonist, and like, he and Bonhart, and I guess maybe also Stefan Skellen, but Stefan Skellen is like very realistic sort of guy. He's not even...
Yes.
He doesn't even belong in a fantasy novel because he wants to make a democracy out of the Empire, which is like the most... just sort of like random political. He's very mundane evil.
I hate how he has just appeared in this show now, though, as like
man. He's not even doing his job as the Imperial Coroner. He's talking to false Ciri and... I don't even know what's going on with him.
It's a small aside, but at least it feels like the environments feel more alive. Like, I really hated how Nilfgaard actually has a creative and art direction. I might not be crazy about the art direction, but we have one. Yes, it's all black, but at least the king...
with Stefan Skellen and false Ciri was like, it wasn't in the books and it didn't feel like it should have happened in the books, but like as a original thing, I could have been like, okay, this is, they're talking. The characters are talking. Yeah. That's what matters. Just have them talk.
Yeah, that's what Dan was saying. He goes, wow, it actually was a scene. Like in our review, he goes, they actually thought about it from blocking, from camera work. It actually had a beginning, middle, and end, and here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of a grander point, but when Game of Thrones was at its best, they were having additional scenes that felt true. Like, there's a great addition where Arya Stark has, in the book, she isn't with Tywin Lannister. She's with Roose Bolton, and that stuff's cool. And I was a bit sad that we lost it. But what we got instead was that it's Tywin. So we get the only time in the series we get to see what Tywin's like when people aren't looking. So we get little hints of what his character is like. And people go, oh, that's such a great addition to this world, and it's a good change that even George is like, it's pretty good. Yeah. Where with this, I don't think there's anything here that I'm like, wow, what a great addition to this world.
I have one thing. It comes from the Rats movie, Bonhart's harmonica. Him using the harmonica to torture Ciri and playing it not that well. Excellent addition. That's it.
I like the introduction of him with The Witcher, where he chops the fingers off and he goes, "Can you still do your signs with 2 fingers?"
Oh my
God.
I
felt that the scene felt a bit stronger because he would have just, well, he's killed a few witches now, actually, so it doesn't make sense. Never mind. Because I was like,
Well,
because
yeah.
he just fought Dolph Lundgren, right? So therefore he's like, he's going after other witches, but he would have understood, unless he's just trying to antagonize the guy. But still, like, I got we're back on him again because he's at least he's the bright dark spot in essence.
Yeah.
Oh, it's more of a joke, but Jaskier's rival, all is not as it
Voldemort.
seems. He's brought up in name once, right? He's never
Once,
seen or
as
heard
the
from.
troubadour of Sidaris in The Last
So
Wish.
I think also that's if you wanted to summarize it, that's really odd of them. That they go through the book, go, a rival troubadour that maybe was possibly a lover, who knows? And then we're going to build it. I mean, I was amazed they brought him back in. And they put him in this homeless little, like, potato sack. And like,
yeah, for his backstory. It's just so odd because it's like,
why add that?
You know why Milva and Regis have backstories? Because their backstories are important to the plot.
Yeah.
To define
not a joke.
why they are
Yeah.
going with Geralt. As we were talking about character motivations, right? No one in this show has a concrete character motivation that is actually fleshed out throughout the show. In the books, it's a little bit like vague at first, but the whole thing is like it gets revealed by the end of the book and it keeps you reading because it's interesting. Whereas I think Netflix has seen that like we're keeping the reader in suspense because like, wait, how did Regis pull that horseshoe? Wait a minute, how did he appear and save and free Geralt and Dandelion? And then how did he disappear again? And then, wait, he's not a sorcerer? Okay, let's keep reading. Keep reading. And then, finally, Milva saw what she should have seen long ago. Regis did not cast a shadow. Move away from him. Or, it's like, go on, push. Or in English translation, thrust it in, right? So Regis, doing this, but like, so it keeps you in suspense. And then also, that's not even everything with the reveal, because in chapter 7, that's only when we get his backstory, right? And kind of similar for Milva, because in chapter 1, we get all of this exposition about Milva.
Which I really
from
liked.
Dijkstra. Yeah, and it's like, also, we get it from her point of view. So we open with her thinking, or at least the narration going on about her bow, about how she got it, her Zephyr, from the north, right? From the trading that she does. And we get a sense of like who she is as a character, because she has to like travel and go to all these markets as a human, but then she also works for Brokilon, and she's, leading Skoy Tile Commando. So we get the sense of like she's a double agent, right? And she's this informer, and she's working for Geralt, and that's how we're introduced to the whole setup, right? With the character motivations in the show, it's just like they all turn up and start helping the protagonist, and it's like, well, why are they here and who are they? And then the way that the show decides to give us this exposition is just like, just have everybody just immediately tell their exposition. Okay, but why would they tell their exposition? Because they've known each other for 2 seconds.
You probably haven't watched Rebel Moon. There's Zack Snyder's god-awful, like...
I've seen it memed on a couple of times.
There's a sequence in which all the characters sit down and have like a Jesus Last Supper, they're all on a long table, and they all just go, I'll tell my story now, and it's 20-30 minutes of them all just slowly revealing their backstory to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's god-awful. In this, it felt like there's a TV show on Apple TV called, I think, Murder Mystery or The Dinner Party or something like that, where every episode is, well, what were you doing before the person died? And every episode is a different genre. Like, one is a comedy musical, the other's like a tragedy, it's all like, or high school comedy. And I felt watching this, they were trying to do that. Like, Jaskiers can be like a musical that's kind of funny, and or like they it's like they half did it, like they didn't quite land on it. And then smaller sides as well, where it's like they need Liam's Geralt to have interactions, so they have a flashback with Ciri, and then they have a Yennefer teleport. And for me, the worst shot is the wide of Yennefer like riding Geralt as they're like, I skipped through the
sex scene.
Yeah, did we need this? And then we point out
that.
And then the moving away from nudity. Like in season 1, they've got this poor 24-year-old actress with her first big gig, and she, they have Anya take her top off, and then with this, they've completely moved away from it. I think not that they're the end all be. I don't understand how it works, but like they didn't have an intimacy coordinator for season 1 when they were getting nude.
Wait, they didn't have one?
Naked. I believe that's what you were telling me. Yeah, they didn't have one. Even in the big naked orgy scene, they didn't have one.
Oh my
but
God.
Yet, I imagine. But then they've slowly moved away from all that stuff now, which is interesting because Game of Thrones did the same thing. In Game of Thrones, it's heavily naked, flaccid penises everywhere. But then as you get to, the later seasons, which is, I think, part of both the book and the show is going for, that you're seeing stronger representation of women in this world. So at first they start out as prostitutes or people to be married off to lords, but now here they are as like leaders and soldiers. So I think that is the intention of the show, which arguably does or doesn't work depending on who you talk to. But with this, it just, I don't know why they even started there, because I also think that I mean, nudity and sex it depends on who, you talk to, but it's something that if you want to show intimacy with a character, it doesn't need to be dry humping between two actors. You just need to give me a good scene of them actually
dialogue
being intimate.
Is much more powerful to develop the relationship. And it's funny as well. I mean, we can talk also about like cultural attitudes towards nudity, but something that I also realized about season 4 is that when Ciri and Missile are getting tattooed, well, Missile gets tattooed first, but in the books, of course, the tattoo is on their inner thigh, so it's right near their, pubic region, right? And Ciri, it's funny because in David French's translation, it says that Ciri looked at her friend's thigh. It just says in Polish, like, she looked at her thigh. But so Ciri kind of, like, gets up, and she kind of, like, the thighs here, and she kind of looks and puts her face in there. So it's like, it's a little bit funny. It's also like kind of like we're meant to feel uneasy because Ciri and Missile, right? But we're also meant to show that like Ciri has had her loss of innocence. And but so like The Witcher has all of these moments of like nudity as like vulnerability, intimacy. It's not like necessarily sexual all the time, but it is, it's very human, right? So nudity is a part of human life. It feels realistic. Yes. It just feels weird because whenever the nudity is portrayed in the show, and this might be, a cultural difference in how us Americans like to portray nudity, but it feels like very staged and almost like it feels like I'm watching like porn because it's just like so perfectly like framed and like it's like there's like glittery effects and like I don't know, it's just
well, I had that with the show Euphoria. Euphoria is basically as close as it gets before it's porn. Like you were one shot away from porn with a show like Euphoria. It's actually it's shocking to me.
I think what I want to bring up, because I didn't really bring it up in my video that I, like the newest video on my channel, but it relates also to your channel as you talk about like the actual structure of the TV show and like, is this good TV, is what we were talking about, the fish soup scene and like the pacing, because this scene in the show is a conglomerate of several different scenes and also added scenes that were never there in the book. So what really like messed me up about this, also because my Regis favoritism and bias, but like in the books, right, in chapter 5, when Regis is revealed as a vampire, he has this dialogue with Geralt, and it's really, there's a lot of tension in this dialogue because we just met Regis. I mean, he turns out to be a good guy, but we don't really know what he's up to. And also he's an intellectual and likes playing mind games, right? So he's playing this whole game with Geralt, and I mean, this is one of my favorite parts is that Geralt has the sword to his throat. Then he, takes it back and he goes, make yourself scarce, go away, leave. And then Regis goes, oh, to what, faraway place should I make myself scarce to? Because you know who I am, you know what I do, you know what I do for a living, you know how I earn my keep, will you come after me? Geralt says, if there's a reward. And then Regis goes like, okay, I'll leave. Just one more thing. How high would the reward on my head have to be for you to come after me? And then Geralt goes, bloody high. Regis, oh, that's, you tickle my vanity. How much exactly? Fuck off, Regis. I'm going. Not there. Yeah, it's not there. And the whole thing about this scene is that Regis finally asks Geralt, like, how high? And Geralt goes, with his voice as cold as ice, I doubt anyone could afford it. And he goes, dziękuję. Or he goes, rozumiem, dziękuję. And then He just disappears. And it's so ominous. And it's like, what the fuck did we just witness? None of us is a Witcher except Geralt. So what the hell was that? And like, this is like tension. This is relationship building. And like, the thing is that like Regis turns out to be an ally and a good guy as he was before. But the thing is that like by the end of the novel, when Regis is helping Milva and when Geralt trusts him to do so, and he's also, other scenes that they cut of him healing the girl, of him having these conversations, these asides with Geralt, where he is advising him. And also another scene that they cut where Geralt is, when Regis reappears later on after, he just got chased away, but he left on his own accord, right? As a vampire does. But he comes back and then he tells Geralt, you should accept advice because if you push people away, that's not good, basically. Or, you're wanting to take on this suffering for yourself in a baptism of fire. But the whole thing is that you pay off debts by writing up debts with other people, right? So just basically his message is accept the company that you have, ask for advice when you need it, embrace the friendship that you are being given. So later in the book, when Geralt asks Regis for advice, actually accepts his company, we're not only seeing a payoff and a change and a development in his character from when he pointed the sword at his neck and was like, fuck off, you're a vampire, we gotta, handle this whole thing. But also in the subsequent scene with him where he told him to take advice. So now we see him not only accepting him, even though he's a vampire, or, not even despite it, but like, just, whatever, we're chilling with that Witcher vampire thing. But then it's also about Geralt's character changing to accept advice, accept a company, and move forward and develop his character. And in the Netflix series, he just is like when his delivery of the what a company that's happened upon me, what a company I found. His when he starts listing the members, a poetaster with the lute, a wild lippy half woman, half dryad, a vampire about to notch up his 5th century, and a bloody Nilfgaardian who claims he's not Nilfgaardian. So this is like in the books, he's like contemptful and he's sort of like annoyed and he's like, a bloody Nilfgaardian who thinks he's a vampire. But and then later on during the Battle of the Bridge, he's like, I shit on this war. This is for Milva. Join me or join the Blacks, but do it quickly. And so we see this whole total change in Geralt's character throughout the book. And that's not there in Netflix. And this is why it bugs me when people are like, oh, well, the show is accurate because they did these scenes. Okay, but you cut out Geralt's entire character arc. You did a few scenes, but you did them so that he doesn't actually have any development as a character. In the show, he's like, oh, what a company I've happened upon. 2 dwarves, a poet. He seems dreamy, and it's like a totally wrong characterization here. And then where does he end up? There's no change.
Well, there's so many people who have watched this go, nothing happened. They just walked around the woods for 8 episodes. Because they're right. Nothing did kind of happen.
Yeah, and that's also the criticism of Baptism of Fire when people don't actually, really engage with the book. They're like, oh, but they just walked around. So that's boring. It's like, but there was a message.
Yeah, and also there's like the whole 2 more books that you could just read right now. So it's weird to just go, oh, this book bad. But so it's weird though, because, and I guess we'll summarize with these points, is that they include some things, but they won't give Geralt, the fact that he's a softie, so he's shitting on the horse, but keeping the horse because he loves it anyway, because he's a softie. But then they go and do the specificness of Queen Maeve, who we've seen once this season. And they still go ahead and have her with the teeth situation, which works wonderfully if you do this show properly. Then this is just another kind of Witcher humour moment that the queen, who's about to knight our hero, is missing 2 front teeth. Like that is, it suits my British Monty Python type humour, Holy Grail type stuff.
Yes.
But then when it just happens here, it just feels tonally weird. Because the show is earnest and very plain. Yeah, because the show is so plain in how it describes this world, to then go and go, and she lost her 2 front teeth. It just feels odd. And I'm sure it would have people who haven't read the books scratching their head as to why they chose to do that.
Oh, yes. I literally saw a comment on r/Wisher today, which was like, it was so weird that Maeve showed up. Like, why did this random queen show up? And everyone was like, well, it happened in the book, but it happened differently. So yeah,
because you don't get the sense we're at war, we're not seeing it, and I guess that's just where we are with the show, is that we're just getting the most surface level version of the show. Now that seems to be where they've landed as a baseline, is sort of doing the books, is
Sort of.
how I would describe it, is sort of doing the books. And then we think I don't think it's too official, but as soon as they're done with season 5, I think they're pretty much done. I mean, unless someone looks at Crossroads of Ravens and goes, 18-year-old Geralt on adventures, how about we just do that for 4 seasons? Maybe. That's the only thing I can think about. But I tried watching Blood Origins, Dan watched it, and
I haven't watched it. I can't.
Yeah, like
subject
I
myself
wouldn't.
to that.
I watched 10 minutes of it and was like, "What is this?" Like, it's the land with elves, but elves work exactly the same way humans do, except they've got pointy ears.
Right.
It's like they're better off being mystical. Like, we didn't know how they worked. Like, the moment you show us that they're just regular people with the same accents, but it's 1,000 years ago, it's stupid. But yeah, I guess. I mean, thank you for being here, of course.
Thank you for
It's
inviting
been quite
me.
a treat for me as a fan of your channel to actually... I feel like I've got my own personal version of one of your videos, so that's very good.
Oh, yeah,
so
well,
it's very
I'm
good.
always happy to come on and talk about The Witcher. I mean, I could literally go for
of
5
course.
more hours, so thank you for
No,
calling it.
That's
really.
all. No, we're the same. Yeah, and if you ever happen to do Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I will happily come on and do it, because that's my favourite. I'm the equivalent of you with The Witcher with that series. That big-ass 1,000-page book of mine. But yes, and for everyone else, please go ahead. If you're new here because you follow on Industry Tree, welcome, and vice versa, go ahead to their channel and subscribe. For I imagine it's more Witcher-based content for a while and stuff.
Yes, mostly Witcher-based channel. East Vitra is the island of Nimue in the book, so it's like the place for all the Witcher stuff.
Yes. That makes sense.
But yes, commentary, video essays, stuff of that nature.
Yeah, and it's like you and Jess of the Shire. She's like the Tolkien, if you know Jess of the Shire. She just does Tolkien stuff.
Oh my gosh, that is a very big compliment.
Oh no, yeah, and then if you ever do any, you might be doing an Elric. I would be really interested in you doing an Elric compared to Witcher.
Yes, I want to get like more into the actual series, not just one book, because you read one book, you don't know everything, right?
Yeah,
so.
No, yeah, exactly. But I think I'd be because as you brought up, which I didn't know, because I always thought Geralt was described as albino in the books, but you went, no, he's not. And I was like, you were right, it's true, he's not. So like already you. Yeah, but you're correcting what some people say all the time. Oh, he was originally way paler in the books, but they changed it. But no, he's not described as being notably pale. It's just what we imagine in our heads, I guess. But yes, okay, wonderful. Thanks again for being here. Hope you... And sorry again for staying up so late. I've just realised how late it
No,
must
I'm
be
a night owl anyways.
That's all right then.
My bedtime's usually like 2 a.m., so...
Oh, good then. Well, thanks again.